much. Play first and last the one God made, and that's the truth. But man, keep on trying to hold me back while another chicken head come home to roost. Too strong, try to do me wrong, and the last one standing will order hand command you to dance. Oh, dance.
Well, tell your preacher and your teacher I'ma give you what you love. I got to give you what you love. It's time to give you what you love. Give you what you love. Give you some love. Yeah, baby. I said I take your time, take what you love, baby, just enough, but never too much, baby. Take your time, take what you love and with it, baby, grab you better look at that, baby. Take your time, take what you love, baby, just enough, but never too much, baby. Take your time, and when it give me some love, won't you give me what you
Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on wordradio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. If you are hearing the sound of my voice, I am your host, Andrea Lawful Sanders, and man, oh man alive, have we got another hot show for you today. You know, I thank you all so much for always being listeners who are willing to learn and to teach. You know, there's so much that I still don't know about this city of Philadelphia, and I am always excited to hear from you. Some of you have been emailing me with alacrity, and so I've been reading where I can, what's going on in the city and the country, and, giving you the news as I get it from the most reliable sources. So we have to vet and check and do a lot of that. In fact, there's an email that I have to check at the next station break because I almost forgot about that young man. But right now we have on today's civic engagement topics, Nicole Keels Magruder, and a guest from the United States Census Bureau, Lynn Newman, Senior Partnership Specialist for the U.S. Census Bureau in the Philadelphia region. With the census deadline being moved up to September 30th, 2020, we want to make sure folks know how important it is to complete the census and what is at risk for our communities if we don't. Today is also National Voter Registration Day. I told you Mom was coming out the gate hot today. Next week is the presidential debate. The NAACP is hosting a watch party, and the NAACP, the AARP, and the ACLU are partnering in 3 voter education forums next week. It is not too late to complete your census, and so here we go. Nicole Keels Magruder and Lynn Newman. Good afternoon to the both of you.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I noticed that you all called in a little early. Thank you. I love when my guests are prompt, right? I was here in the studio and noticed that you guys called a good 10 minutes early. So let's get started, shall we? Thank you for calling into The Source. Nicole, you and I have been having discussions ever since we got on a Zoom call some weeks ago about voter registration and working with young people and what that meant, and working with the NAACP. So thank you for continuing to call in and giving us great guests to speak with. What are we talking about today?
Okay, so I am going to leave most of the time for Lynn, but I did want to share some important information with your listeners. Yes, today is National Voter Registration Day.
Yesterday was National Voter Registration Day.
Yes, and there was a ruling that came out last week, and I just wanted to be sure that your listeners understand what that means to them in this upcoming election. So in that ruling, it confirmed that counties can now have additional secure options for voters to cast their ballots, so we don't have to rely solely on the post office.
Okay.
So we'll have the additional county satellite election offices and drop boxes.
Okay. Okay.
So there are options. The flip side to that is that it was also ruled that ballots will not be counted if they are not within their secrecy envelope and then placed inside a return envelope. So it is very important to read the instructions. We will be discussing this in a lot more detail during the forums next week. But the elections chief, Elisa Dealey, said that this is really going to impact unfortunately, the African American community, and she projects that 30 to 40,000 ballots will be rejected.
Oh,
if folks
wow.
don't complete them. So we have to make sure that we cast our ballots, but do it correctly.
Okay, so for those of you who are listening in the WURD listening audience, and of course we will talk about this again and again until Election Day, and Pennsylvania is doing early voting. So when you get your mail-in ballots, if you're using the mail-in ballots, because I had to do this in June with my husband, there is a secret envelope that you put the ballot into, and then there's another envelope that you put that secret envelope into, right?
Yeah.
If you do not put those two things in together, your ballot will not be counted. Please spread the word and let everyone know. And that the ruling came down according to Nicole, and I do believe that, Nicole, because I think I saw that yesterday, that, we will have additional drop boxes and places where we can securely drop our ballots, but they must be placed. So when you get the ballot, don't throw out the things that come with it, right? There are two separate envelopes that come with your ballots, the secret one and the one that you put the secret one inside of. And so we'll always talk about that right up until Election Day. Make sure both things, the ballot is in both envelopes. If they open it up and see that your ballot is naked, sitting in a pan somewhere, it will be discounted, and they're projecting that over 30,000 people's ballots will not be counted as a direct result. And that's really suppressing our vote again, So I want us to think long and hard about what we're doing and to take our time when we're doing our ballots. So Lynn, thank you so much. What do we need to know about the census?
Thank you so much, Ms. Lawful Sanders, for having me on today. So it is not too late. It is not too late to complete your questionnaire. You can go on to our website, which is my2020census.gov to complete your questionnaire.
Yeah.
If you do not want to go online, you can call the toll-free number of 844-330-2020, 844-330-2020.
All right, I'm putting in the social media pages now so that people can see. So it's 844 for the census, right?
Right, 844-330-2020 if you want to call and record or complete your questionnaire over the phone.
Oh, you could do that?
So yes, you can also go online. And you can go online at my2020census.gov.
Online at, I'm putting it in right now, my 2020. All right, so, because I try to give people the information, they will call into the studio as much as possible.
And at the top right, once they go online, on the top right, they can click on to the respond button and complete their questionnaire.
Okay.
It should only take a few minutes.
Right.
And, this is something that we do once every 10 years. All of the information is held confidential.
Right.
It's important that we get a complete and accurate count. Census data is used for the distribution of hundreds of billions of dollars for roads, for schools, say for free lunch programs,
right,
for SNAP programs, for housing. So, it's extremely important that we get a complete and accurate count.
Let me ask.
All of the information is held confidential.
Thank you because there's so many people that are not sure that it's confidential.
Correct.
And you know what that means for a lot of folks, especially the people that are documented and undocumented here. And so, where are we as we're looking at the numbers compared to 10 years ago? Where are we in Pennsylvania and Philadelphia specifically?
So right now, for self-response, Pennsylvania, and this is for self-response, is at 68.8%. For total response rate for Pennsylvania, we're also running what we call our non-response follow-up operation, where enumerators will go door to door to those housing units that have not responded. So for Pennsylvania, we are at 96.5.
Yes.
But
for Philadelphia?
For Philadelphia, the self-response rate is at 55.3.
Oh.
So, there's a lot of information, commercials and social media. So we really need people to respond. There's still time to respond.
Okay, so Philadelphia, did you say 55.3?
55.3.
55. Okay.
That's for
So
self-response.
for my Philadelphians who are constantly calling this radio station, constantly saying that we don't have great education, that our streets are horrible, that our neighborhoods look terrible, that just you name the infraction here. Please check in with your neighbors. Ask them if they filled out the census. If they haven't filled it out, walk them through the process, right? Especially if you are a WURD listener. Every time someone does not fill out the census, you lose over $20,000. Is that correct, Lynn?
That's correct. That's a lot of money
That
is
is.
left on the table. So we want to make sure that each community, each area gets its fair share of funding,
Right.
and it's all based on population count.
Right.
And how can any community plan if you don't know who's here?
Right. So, Mike, do 150,000 people times $20,000, please, so that we can see how many millions of dollars are just left waffling. 150,000 people times $20,000. And so we can see how many millions of people. Someone on Facebook is asking, have you started knocking on the doors of those who haven't returned it yet in Philadelphia?
Correct. We are in that's the non-response follow-up operation. Yes.
Okay. All right.
We are knocking on doors, so we're asking those housing units to please cooperate with the enumerator if you've not had the opportunity to either go online, call the toll-free number, or complete your questionnaire if you received a paper copy.
How would they know that the enumerator is as they describe themselves? What identifiable factor do you have for the enumerators when they come to the doors? Because, listen, black folks, people who are marginalized, have a hard time sometimes dealing with people knocking on their doors and they will not answer. So how are you identifying them?
So the census employee will have a badge which they will wear around their neck with their picture. It'll have a watermark on it. It'll say Department of Commerce. They will also have a shoulder bag that has U.S. Census Bureau on there. They will also have a handheld device. If you look at the back of the device, it should say United States Census 2020.
Okay. This is what I'm right. So that you're giving me identifiable markers for people when they show up at the doors asking, to fill out the census. It is now September 22nd. We have $300 million is what's going to be left on the table if 120,000 people alone, and that's not the total population of people in Philadelphia. I'm just giving you a broad number. 120,000 people do not fill out the census. $300 million is left on the table for every year for the next 10 years. Come on, people. I need you to encourage folks. We know people who aren't filling out the census for a myriad of reasons. We need to encourage them to do this. Is there anything else either one of you would like to let me know? And I'd like to keep next week. We have 8 more days, right? Lynn, I'd like you to come back on next week again. All right, so we can continue to give us an update, and then we'll let people know. Where are we in terms of collecting more people to apply for the census, to fill it out.
Okay.
All right.
And I think for me, that my final message is it's not too late. It's not too late.
Okay.
Shape your future. Start here. Start here at the 2020 census. Go online, my2020census.gov, my2020census.gov, or call the toll-free number of 844-330-2020. It will truly take a few minutes to complete the questionnaire, and all of your information is held confidential.
Thank you so much, Lynn.
Thank you.
I fully appreciate your calling in and making us aware. And Nicole, is there anything else you'd like us to do?
No, I thank you so much for having me on again, sharing all this important information with your audience. And I look forward to coming back again in a couple of weeks.
Right. I did not hear from you about our emails. Did you figure that out?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
Okay. All right. Good. So we'll talk offline. Thank you thank you both so much. Let me just make sure. Nicole Keels Magruder and our guest Lynn Newman, Senior Partnership Specialist for the United States Census Bureau in the Philadelphia region. And so, thank you both so much for calling in. I look forward to speaking with you next week, okay?
Thank you. You have
Bye-bye.
a good afternoon.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The time is 1:20 and the temperature is 72 degrees. brought to you from the Beach Companies with 30 years of serving our community. Check out the website for the free Black Business Directory and our Community Resources Directory. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WordRadio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. If you are hearing the sound of my voice, I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and we'll be right back after these messages.
If you're eligible for Medicare in 2021, you could have a chance to win one of 4 great prizes, like dinner prepared by a local chef and home fitness equipment. When you enter to win, you'll also receive a free COVID-19 News You Need booklet. Visit www.ibxmedicare.com/healthy advice to enter. Independence Blue Cross offers products through its subsidiaries Independence Hospital Indemnity Plan, Keystone Health Plan East, and QCC Insurance Company, independent licensees of the Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association. What's up, everyone? I know you know the word, no, not the station, but this word, J-O-B, that is, and our friends at Amoroso's Baking Company are hiring right now. Amoroso's has been baking the delicious bread in our community for over 100 years, and they want you to join their team today. The old and the young love Amoroso's, and they are hiring right now. Check it out. They offer fair pay and provide health, dental, and prescription plans after 90 days employment. Call 856-754-0355 or visit amorososbaking.com for details.
You're listening to The Source on Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Welcome back to The Source. While I wait for Reverend Waller to call in, and that just might be him, let me take Reverend Joe for a little bit. Reverend Joe, are you there?
Hey, Pastor Waller. Hold on for me, okay?
Reverend Joe?
Yes, good afternoon, Ms. I
Good
want to thank
afternoon.
you for giving all this great information and masonry that said in search of more light. And you certainly given us a light on this voting and everything else. So I wanted to encourage your heart about that. Did you get any information about that spiritual music that you come up with?
No, I have Brianna working on it, sir. But when I get off the air in the afternoons, I've got 1,000 other things happening. But we haven't forgotten you.
Okay,
We're going to make sure we get
I
it.
wanted to remind. The other thing I wanted to remind you that Broad Street is the longest street in the country. I don't know if you knew that, but
In the country?
in the country, longest street.
I love you. I love you, Reverend Joe. You always have some good information for me.
What is it? And the other thing I wanted to say, you found the trails in Fairmount Park. Actually, Fairmount Park is the largest park in the world, too.
Yes.
Yeah, so I wonder.
I thought it was the second largest. It's the largest.
It's the largest because, you found those trails with the Indians. Half the stuff nobody knows exists.
Yes.
But so I wanted to call and say that. So we got to keep, and this voting information is so important.
Yes, it
that
is.
you're doing. We're trying to give them information on over the phone because we haven't met since March.
Yeah.
But the way things are going, people are going to be so confused. They're going to lose out by not knowing what to do. So they got to stay tuned and keep bringing people. A lady called me today. They're trying to get some people together to pick up folks and take them to the polls and bring them back.
Yes. Yes.
So that's good. So if this encouragement could make you do your job and keep doing what you're doing, that's why I'm calling.
Thank you, sir. You have a good one, okay?
Well, God bless you. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right, let me, I think I'm going to have a surprise guest on at 2 o'clock. Reverend Dr. Alan E. Waller is the senior pastor of the Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, a highly sought-after revivalist, vocalist, and lecturer. Dr. Waller is a true visionary of the church and the community who serves humanity far beyond the restraints of traditionalism. Pastor Waller, how are you?
Hey, I am great. How are you?
I am so good. We are 42, 43 days away from the election, sir. And we still have people talking about the fact that they don't know what they want to do. People are still fussing. I don't know what to tell you. Pray for me. And whatever you're putting up there, the prayers, please add one for Mother, okay? Because
well, we're praying. And, the good word this week is that beginning the 29th, all of the satellite sites are up.
So September 29th?
September 29th. They will be open 7 days a week.
Yes.
There are 17 sites in the county of Philadelphia.
Okay.
The 15 schools plus City Hall and what is the place down there? I think that's the fire department right there on City oh my goodness,
it's all right.
Off the top of my head. On Spring Garden.
What's on Spring Garden Street?
That is you know, the place, I can't call it off the top of my head right now, but it's where we did the press conference the night the city was in the uprisings. But let me just point you to the Inquirer.
Okay.
And there is an article in the Inquirer where all 17 spots are. Most of them are school buildings.
Okay.
And City Hall.
Okay.
They will be open from Monday through Thursday from 11:30 in the morning until 6:30 in the evening. And then Friday through Sunday, they're open 9:30 in the morning to 4:30 in the evening. And there you can do everything. If you are not registered to vote, you can go there and register to vote. You can stay there and then register for your mail-in ballot. Stay there, get the ballot, and cast your vote.
Okay.
If you have already registered to vote and you have already received your mail-in ballot, you can take it to one of these spots. And the reason that you want to take it to one of these spots is because you don't have to deal with the post office. So this is bringing your mail-in ballot to one of these 17 locations, and they won't ever go through the mail, but it will be your mail-in ballot.
Okay.
If you are registered to vote and you have not applied for a mail-in ballot, you can go to these spots and register for a mail-in ballot, get the ballot that day, and then cast your ballot.
Okay.
We are encouraging as many people as possible to do it early, and ballots will be counted for up to 3 days after November 3rd.
Okay.
But they must get in before or by
November 3rd.
By
Okay.
November 3rd. So you don't have 3 days after to get it in.
Right.
That they will be counting for up to 3 days afterwards because of potential mailing delays. But I want to also remind everybody that if you're not sure right now, if you are not sure what your status is, then you need to go to anybody that is doing voter registration. You can go there and check your status.
Okay.
So I want to encourage everybody to check their status and make sure that you are registered and then follow through. What I did find out yesterday also, which is more disturbing, is that in the county of Philadelphia, we have self-reported at 55.1% on the census.
I just had someone from the United States Census just before you
Okay.
called in, and I am
All right.
incredibly disturbed about that too, Reverend Waller.
That's almost $13 billion over the next, at 64%, it would have been $11 billion we don't get over the next 10 years. At 55%, we're talking about $13 billion that won't come to our community. And when you look at the map, here's the indictment. And, we got to talk about us now. When you look at the map, there's a color-coded map looking at who has reported and where they've reported, and it goes from dark blue to white and yellow and so forth. If you look at the map around us and look at Montgomery County and look at Burke County and even look at Center City, you see blues and dark blues. When you then look into North Philly and West Philly and Germantown, you see bright yellow. Bright yellow means less investment in reporting. We have to report. The reporting lets us, if everybody in Philadelphia would do this, we might find out we need more than the 2 congressmen that we have.
Yes.
Because representatives are based on the numbers of people. And what would it look like if we had, if we all represented and we'd have more people and need more representatives, and that then has implications for the number of representatives and senators, has implications for the number of electoral votes. And we can have the discussion of whether the Electoral College needs to be gone or not. That's a healthy discussion.
Yes.
But there is a way to win even with this institution if we all just show up. And so this sort of ambivalence is going to be the death of us.
Yes.
I've spent the last week reading through the Federalist Papers, the 85 papers or documents written to inform the Constitution. And I understand that these were white, deistic men who did not think about us fully, but they did have an idea about a form of government. And the answer to how we can win in this is understanding their own language.
Yes.
The Federalist Papers help us to understand what was intended by Alexander Hamilton and James Madison. And yes, they were flawed, and yes, they were racist, but sometimes you've got to use their own words for your good. And that means we have to understand how this thing was supposed to be. Right now, we recognize that we're going to have to, this election has gotten even more important because of the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and the probability that another judge will be put on the Supreme Court, which will shift the balance of power in the conservative direction. And I need black conservative people to understand that while you may think this is about abortion and LGBTQIR issues, the same people that don't want them don't want you.
Yes.
So please understand that even if you side on those conservative issues, we do not fare well with a conservative swinging court. And that means that if this happens, we have to ensure that we run the table in the Senate, the Congress, and the presidency. And we have to hold Joe Biden accountable and that Senate accountable for changing the number on the Supreme Court. And if this goes to a 6-3, that means he's got to change the number to 13 people so we can stack it with a 7-6 majority.
Yes.
That's the stuff we've got to talk about. And that's the stuff that we have to be invested in and in a conversation.
I agree. That was more than a mouthful, and everything that you said just now is what we were talking about yesterday, that we really have to get this done. And so I got the Philadelphia Inquirer article that you spoke of on how to vote, about voting in person. And so this is not what I'm looking for, though. I need the name. Tell her to send me the one with the 17 locations in Philadelphia, please. It was a Philadelphia Inquirer article for today. This is good, too, but I need that one so that I can let the people, the WURD listeners, know where the 17 locations are in Philadelphia before I get off the air. Pastor Waller, so much has shifted and changed. And yesterday when I was talking to the listeners here, I impressed upon them that if we don't shift the Senate and if we get a 6-3 on the Supreme Court, Roe versus Wade can be overturned. Just so much that we have taken for granted in our liberties and freedoms will be overturned. And so, it's imperative that we also make people understand that while this is a presidential election, we have to really think about the local ones too, because those make all the difference. We want our Senate races, our congressional races, mayor, all of it, right? There's still such apathy. And for the life of me, despite everything that I have seen, we watch the news and we see that President Trump's voters are now fired up because they want that Supreme Court seat, right?
Right.
That means something to them. We are still here, struggling over whether we want to vote or not. I don't know how to get people past the apathy, to move to a spot where we understand that this is, and we say this at every election, but for African Americans, for people of brown and black people, these elections are life or death. When we don't fill out the census, when we don't exercise our rights to vote, we put it in the hands of other people to decide our fate. And then when our fate is decided in a way that we don't like, then we just go off the rails, right? And we get emotional about what's not happening for us, when quite frankly, our fate is in our hands with the simple stroke of a pen. Literally, right? Or getting online, sir, and filling out your census. You are just look at yourself. Go stand in the mirror, look at yourself, and say, "I am worth $20,000 a year for the next 10 years." right, for the census. And if I fill it out, I'll get better schools. I don't have to worry about needles littering my neighborhood in Kensington. We'll be able to find places for those who are strung out on drugs to get help. We'll be able to find mental health places. You know, we are trying to look for solutions, and no one's thinking about the mental health cost to our people here, that we've just never considered it as much. We continue to hear students talk about the cost of their mental health as they continue to get locked up with suspensions and detentions. If we want all these changes, you know, it's so easy for us to change it by doing these things that Reverend Waller and I are talking about. It is imperative that you register to vote. It's imperative that you go figure out where you're, you know, if you're registered. If you're someone who has been a voter and has not voted for the last year or two, check online, myvotespa.com. I've said it so much I don't even have to, I'm reciting it through rote memory now, right? Myvotespa.com. Check to see if you are eligible to vote, because they're dropping people off the rolls who haven't voted in a couple of years. All sorts of shenanigans are going on. What else do I need to let them know, sir?
Well, I think we have to be on the lookout for distractions.
Yes.
And we have to make sure, and what I mean by distraction, while we don't want to see it, it should not be underestimated, the length to which the Trump administration and his minions will go to get an uprising in our community that takes us away from the vote.
Yes.
We need to be prepared for anything to happen that might cause us at other times to want to hit the streets, to want to riot, to want, and all of those will not be the actions that will be productive in this moment. Yes. We cannot be detoured, and I think people need to understand that it is not beyond this administration to do anything up to and including another shooting.
Yes.
We need to recognize that what they would love to do is send chaos and turmoil into the black community to cause us to lose focus on the election.
So you and I are in the same place, Reverend Waller.
That's right. And so we have to stay focused. I won't use the language calm. We've got to stay focused and recognize the only appropriate response out of our community right now is an educated chess move called fill out your census and go to the polls.
Yes, absolutely.
That is the way you fight the man right now.
Absolutely.
Anything else is not where the battle is right now. There'll come a time for other things, but right now we have to change the structure of the Senate and of the presidency. And when we do, not play nice, but run the table as soon as the new president is in.
Yes, yes. So, Pastor Waller, the list was sent to me. So I'm putting it on the Facebook page so that people can see it, and then I want to let folks know. So here we go. In Center City, City Hall, room 140. Center City again, the Riverview Place on the first floor, and there are addresses. I put the link into the Facebook page on Facebook for WURD so that you can see it. In the far northeast, George Washington High School. In the far northeast again, Joseph H. Brown School. In the lower northeast, Harding Middle School. Lower northeast again, J. Hampton Moore School. In the north, the Leocora Center is going to be open. In the northwest, A.B. Day School will be open. Northwest again, Roxborough High School. In River, Mossbaum High School. South, Creative and Performing Arts. In the southwest, Tilden Middle School. Upper north, Julia D. Burgess Elementary School. Upper north again, Julia Ward Julia Ward House School. In west, Allen Locke School, and in west, Overbrook Elementary School. Go to the WURD Facebook page where we have TV Land, and you will see that I posted the link there. Share it far and wide, please, so that people know exactly where they're going If you need a specific address, if you don't have Facebook and you want to get the address, we have it here in the studios. You can call in 215-634-8065, and we will give you the address to wherever you are, southwest, far northeast, northwest, all of it. Pastor Waller, it is always a pleasure. I would like to get on the line with you one day. I'm looking at him, Senator Vincent Hughes.
Yeah.
I'm going to have my producer pull that together so that the both of you can come on, and because every Tuesday, sir, every Tuesday, right up until Election Day, we can't breathe. We have to continue to have this kind of dialogue so that people understand the importance of all of this and what is at stake for us if we don't do these things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Whatever you need, and we're going to begin a 30 days to the poll. I'm going to be doing something Facebook Live for my Righteous Warrior page.
Okay.
And a Bible challenge for 30 days that looks at the Bible from a social consciousness perspective. And each morning we're going to get up at 6:30, invite those to join us on that, and start a movement that ends up at the poll.
Yes.
We got to do it.
Yes.
I don't want to feel like I felt 4 years ago, the day after the election.
Yes.
That was a horrible feeling to realize that our apathy allowed President Trump to win.
Yes.
44,000 votes in Pennsylvania. And the truth of the matter is the future of this country rests on the backs of black people in Philadelphia.
Yes.
You turn Pennsylvania and we turn the election.
Yes.
And the reality is we don't need anybody to do anything but us, and we can make a difference.
Yes.
And it's just that deep.
Yes, sir.
And we got to remind Joe Biden of that reality.
Yes.
And we have to remind our community. So thank you for what you continue to do.
Yes, sir.
And look forward to talking with you next week.
Yes, sir. Have a good afternoon, okay?
Okay.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Always a pleasure talking to him because we have been incredibly intentional. Do you realize, for those of you who have been listening to this radio show, we have not stopped discussing the election since the primaries? I've not stopped. I have figured out ways for us to continue to have dialogue because I am a firm believer that if you talk about something for 30 days or more, we will get people out to do what they're supposed to do. And so now we've been months at this. And so let's see what happens, shall we? We're literally, this election hinges on us in so many ways, which is why I keep saying we have to get outside of ourselves, get past our emotion, and begin to say, all right, let me fill out the census and let me get myself to the voting booth to vote, and let me figure out how to start holding elected officials accountable once the voting is over, because I don't want you to just vote and go sit in a corner somewhere and suck your thumb. I literally want you to vote, and then after the election go, okay, these are the list of demands that we're asking for because our communities are falling apart and we need things to change. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WordRadio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. I don't know why that sounded so strange to me. At onWURD. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. I know I have callers waiting, and we'll get to you right after the break. If you are hearing the sound of my voice, I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and we'll be right back after these messages.
This is not a fad for us. We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are undeniably, indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media. WURD.
Have you heard about Penny? They make it easier than ever to get health coverage.
What if I'm self-employed?
Penny gets you covered.
Unemployed?
Penny gets you covered.
What about my family?
Penny gets them covered too.
But will this fit into my budget?
Penny can connect you to financial help to lower the cost.
Really? Where do I go?
Easy. Just go to PENNIE.com.
Hey, Mama, you calling me for a change? You and Daddy all right?
We're fine. Can't your mama call and check on her babies and get a little advice?
You know you can. What do you need help with?
Well, despite COVID-19, you know I'm not letting anything stop your father and I from voting this year. But we're here in Pennsylvania. Should we go to our precinct as usual? What's the best way?
You mean I get to be Mama for a minute? All you have to do is go to aarp.org/election 2020.
That's my favorite site, and they have a lot of information about the pandemic.
You only text me the website 3 times, but they have all the reliable, up-to-date voting information for voters 50 plus in every state. Want me to text it to you?
Girl, I know. It's aarp.org/election 2020.
Well, me being your mama didn't last long.
That's 'cause I'll always be your mama.
Yes, ma'am.
You're listening to The Source on Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Welcome back to The Source. Just hot off the presses, the Philadelphia mayor is quarantined. Philadelphia Mayor Jim Kenney is quarantined at home after he came in contact with a person who tested positive for COVID-19. Kenney made the announcement this afternoon after joining the city's regular coronavirus news conference remotely from his home. The mayor said he was tested for the virus on Monday and that his results came back negative. He will avoid going to City Hall this week, he said. Still, because of the contact, I will continue to self-quarantine and will be tested again next week, Kenney said. And that is the perfect thing for him to do because you don't always show up positive right after you come in contact with someone. You know, it takes sometimes 10 to 14 days for you to show up positive. So, let's see. Who do we have on the line? Where's my list of people?
Debbie in West Philly.
Debbie? West Philly?
Yes. How are you?
I'm good, Debbie. What's going on, pretty lady? How are you?
I'm doing great. I was listening to Pastor Waller and the 17 sites that he was talking about.
Yes.
Now, I'm close to Overbrook Elementary School, but I don't know what day they start and what time.
Oh, okay. Hold on. I got that because I wrote that down. They start on September 29th.
Okay.
Mondays to Thursdays, 11:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m.
Okay.
And from Friday to Sunday, 9:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Oh, you are
have
so
a great
welcome,
day,
Miss
okay?
Debbie. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Celeste.
Oh, yes.
How are you?
Hi, Ms. Sanders, and thank you so much for taking my call, and thank you so much for all of your dedicated dialogue and everything and concentration on the voting and the census,
yes,
which I did the census several weeks ago.
Thank you.
Oh, God, thank you. Thank Word for always being on top of it, you know, and reminding, you know. But call is about the voting, okay?
Yes.
I sent the application to receive a mail-in ballot. Now, I haven't received it yet, and I understand that they're slow in sending them right now because there's some things they got to figure out. But what's worrisome to me is that I read on the Internet just yesterday that if I were to decide to instead go to the polls, which I might do, I might decide to instead go to the polls because my polling place is just around the corner from me, you know? However, because I sent an application for a mail-in ballot, if I decide to go to the poll instead, once I receive the ballot, I must take that to the poll with me.
Oh.
I had not filled out, but just have to take that ballot and those envelopes that you're supposed to put it in.
Yes.
Have to take that whole package to the poll with me so that they can cancel it. So
then you'll be able to vote in person.
Right, because they evidently once you apply for a mail-in ballot, okay. There's some sort of void that goes alongside your name or something.
Right.
To prevent you from
voting twice. Right.
Yeah. And so if you then decide to go to the poll, you have to take that with you for them to void it.
Right.
so that you can then proceed to vote at the poll.
Yes. You know, here's my concern, Miss Celeste. I hear you. Here's my concern. What if you require request a mail-in ballot and you didn't get one?
If you didn't get one, what they have there, you know, like say I don't get one.
Yes.
And I still want to vote in person. Okay. Well, I still have to vote in person.
Right.
Then. There's a thing called provisional ballot.
Yes. Okay.
And that's a paper ballot that they have there at the poll. And you will sign a pre-statement that they have, certifying that you didn't vote already.
Right.
And then you will fill out their what they call the provisional ballot, which is a paper ballot. But it's cool for the poll there.
Right.
Fill that out.
Right.
And you give that to them at the polling place.
So, Ms. Celeste,
but they also will give you a receipt, a signed receipt, showing that you did this provisional ballot that you need to keep because it's going to have your number on it. That you can then also track.
Right.
Later on, you can put that number in the system later on and track and to confirm. There ain't nobody monkeying around here.
Yes, I love how informed you are. Have you been working the polls?
No, I have never worked the polls.
Wow, listen, you would make an excellent, because you have researched. I've worked the polls every year since. Let me go back 2004 or 5. I haven't worked the polls in the last 4 or so years. So everything you said was absolutely correct. I just want to.
I have a family member who's illish that must be here to take care of. But in the morning in the afternoon, the early afternoon is when I would go to the poll. Because that's between the time of the hours when that person will be asleep.
Right, right.
And I can presume they'll be asleep, and because I went to the polls for the primary, and I mean I put a chair I could sit in a shopping cart, just in case but there was no line for the primary.
Right.
But I was prepared.
Right.
And I'll take that same thing with me for this.
Right. And now they have drop-off locations. Now you can go to these locations in Philadelphia and apply for a mail-in ballot on the spot, get it on the spot, vote on the spot.
And that's my other question, too. Now, presuming I get the mail-in ballot, and presuming I still don't want to do the mail-in, I want to do the poll thing, I know there's some sort of early voting you can do now.
Yes.
Can I do that at that room 140?
I do believe so, but I would
take that ballot that I'm not going to fill out.
Right. With
take
you.
That
yes.
With me, along with all the envelopes. You got to do the.
Yes, all the envelopes. Package. Yes.
Bring the whole package.
Yes.
And, without filling it out, because I'll just feel safer.
Yes. Miss Celeste, you are not the only one. Some of my friends have begun calling me saying that they're going to mask up, put on a hazmat suit.
Absolutely.
They feel like their votes are so much safer if they go in to vote versus using a ballot, because they think that, there are going to be some sort of things tried.
Well, I got to get that devil out of the White House. Named Trump. Got to get him out.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am. And I got to get the turn the
Senate around. Yes.
Turn the because they have a heavy hand.
Yes, they do. They absolutely do. And I don't think people realize how heavy their hands are and how it impacts us in the brown and black communities in such adverse ways. So we have to be careful. Thank you so much for calling in, Miss Celeste.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Rosalind in Kensington, I have 2 minutes, lady. How are you?
Yes, praise the Lord. How are you?
I'm good. What can I do for you?
I want everybody to become. She answered a lot of questions, but my question is, I already sent. First, they send you out the first letter to fill out. Then they send you out the ballot. Then you send that back. How do you find out whether it went through, or it registered.
So mypavotes.com. You go and you put in your name and address, and it shows up, because that's what my husband and I were doing. We kept trying to hear back from our city commissioners about what was going on, and my husband was dogmatic. It took 9 weeks for us to see something on the computer.
I don't know how to do no computer.
Okay, all right. So then wait, there was a 1-800 number. Okay.
Yeah,
here's what, all right, you know what, you just said something that you're right, you are absolutely right, madam. And so we need a phone number for people to call, and a phone number where folks are going to answer. So let me look that up, because you're quite welcome, Ms. Brown. Listen, I'm trying to help as many people as I possibly can.
Let me tell you something, but you got to take care of you, too.
Yes, ma'am, I will.
Take care of you. I love you, and WRD, and everybody, please register to vote and get that 20 census filled out.
Yes,
it's in the reference of our next generation.
Yes, ma'am.
Next too much 10 years. Money on the table.
$300 billion on the table if people don't fill out that census. So every time they see a family member, they need
to go on in and tell them we'll give them a census check form to register to vote and fill out the census.
Yes, ma'am.
Give them something to get them out there and vote.
Yes, ma'am.
And fill it out.
Yes, ma'am.
Money talk, and the money is there. They just don't get it.
Yeah. You know, Miss Celeste, Miss Roslyn, I'm sorry, I keep calling you Miss Celeste. Thank you so much for that, because we're going to keep discussing this time and time again, right up until the elections. You hear?
Facebook, Twitter, all that.
Yes, ma'am.
I do it every day, all day long. I push it. I don't care who picture I got to put up. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, all the men I grew up on Philadelphia Street.
That's right.
I put their pictures up there. Vote.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Be safe. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
And make sure you get that number for us. Okay?
I will. I think Mike is looking it up now. Where they can call. Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM. I love the WRD listening audience. I love you all. Streaming live on WordRadio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. If you are hearing the sound of my voice, I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Weather and traffic to keep you informed for your drive home in the happy hour with Sincerely Sarita, Monday through Thursday 4 till 7 p.m. right here on Word Radio 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Dietz & Watson has been making premium meats and artisan cheeses for over 80 years. And when it comes to stacking sandwiches and party platters, they've got something for everyone in the family, like maple honey turkey breast, American cheese, buffalo chicken, and more. So get to your local deli and taste 4 generations of family recipes. With Dietz & Watson on the table, you'll have everyone coming back for seconds and thirds. Dietz & Watson, it's a family thing since 1939.
Justice, equality, accountability. These are the values we need in our leaders to bring us together and be the America we know we can be. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are those leaders. Joe Biden has the experience to fix our broken economy. He's done it before and he'll do it again. And our own Kamala Harris is ready to lead. As senator, she championed education, health care, and criminal justice reform. And with Joe Biden, with values rooted in our common goals and the leadership of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Paid for by Black PAC and Unite the Country. www.blackpac.com and www.unitethecountry.com, which are responsible for the content of this advertising, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
This is Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Independent Black Media.
You're listening to The Source
on Word Radio,
96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Welcome back to The Source. If you see me pull up my headphones each time we go to commercial, the commercials are much louder and they're blowing out my eardrums, so I forgot to lift them up, and Mike, everything went flying out of my hand. I'm trying to hold on to my hearing until I'm about 99 and a half, okay? it occurred to me, and Mike and I have been working in tandem here in the studios, that the average WURD listener is in the 60 and over, and that not everybody has access to a computer. And so, if you want to check to make sure that your ballots went through, you call 1-877-868-3772. Again, 1-877-868-3772. Mike, they don't have the computer. They're not going online to do myvotespa.com. So this is 1-877-VOTES-PA. They can call in and get some answers for whether or not their ballots went through. We are doing all of this now. You notice that we're not waiting until October to have the conversation. We have been on this particular show. We have been having this conversation May, June, July. I never stopped. In fact, I kept saying to folks, we cannot afford to relax over the summer. COVID was happening anyway. What else did we have to do but apply for our ballots? Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. Thank you. 1-877-868-3772. And so Mike, that was you that put it up on there. I was talking to you. Oh, Lord, help me, Jesus. So Mike has been putting it up on the Facebook page so that you all can see it. So thank you. I have a surprise guest calling in at 2:21. Sometimes, and this is why I like to leave spots for, open spots so I can talk to the WURD listeners, but maybe, have a couple of people call in at some point or another. I'm going to read a couple of things to you. In the Philadelphia Inquirer, listen to this. Again, people, black and brown people, pay attention. You cannot look up Philadelphia property owners by name anymore. Cites security matters. Philadelphia officials have reprogrammed the city's property search website to remove the ability to look up properties by the names of their owners, citing undisclosed security concerns. Under the change implemented about a week ago, users of the search at property.phila.gov can still find out who owns a property by inputting an address, but searchers can no longer enter the names of people or companies to see the addresses of the properties they own. Thank the Lord. It says here, we decided that disabling the search function can help prevent any heat of the moment incidents that would target a property owner while still keeping this public information public, Deputy Finance Director Catherine Lamb, whose agency maintains the data, said on Monday. The change comes as activists increasingly embrace a tactic of tracking down the addresses of public officials to hold protests outside of their homes. Now, that's one way, but what about the regular average citizen who was being targeted, through their names? So demonstrations have been held in recent months outside the homes of Mayor Kenny and former managing director Brian Abernathy, but it was unknown if organizers found the officials' addresses through the property search site. The overall temperament of events right now has prompted officials to reconsider issues of access to information and public safety and people's safety, Lamb said. City spokesperson Mike Dunn declined to identify individuals who have voiced concerns about the search by owner capability because they have not given their permission. He also would not disclose the timing of the change because it involves security matters. The change pulls Philadelphia out of step with neighboring Bucks, Chester, and Delaware counties, which permit owner searches on their websites, although Delaware County and Pittsburgh don't offer those capabilities, according to a survey completed by the city to help inform its decision to pull the function. Other big cities, including New York, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, also don't allow such searches, while Dallas, Miami, and Boston do. About 10,000 people had been performing such queries each month on Philadelphia's property search website, which debuted 5 years ago to look up properties by the names of their owners each month, according to the city data. That's about 10% of all those using the site. People wishing to search for properties by owners' names can still do so by downloading raw data from city website and opening them as spreadsheets on their computers, said Lamb. George Donnelly, an attorney with the Public Interest Law Center, said that's easy for people who know how to sift through big data sets on spreadsheets and have computers that are up to the task. But, he said, the simple search that used to be available only on the city's on the city's website was empowering for people without technical backgrounds and speedy computers, and had few ways of getting more information about current or potential landlords. For example, he coached clients looking for new rental homes to see what other properties were owned by prospective landlords in order to check those addresses against other city websites that list health and safety violations. So maybe they need to have a different site for landlords, people who are renting properties. Not being able to search by owner, it allows some landlord to operate a little more in the shadows than they did 2 weeks ago, he said. And this was posted today at 11:28 a.m. by Jacob Adelman on the PhiladelphiaInquirer.com. So there's that. The coronavirus COVID-19 data for Pennsylvania. As of today, total cases 151,646. Negatives 1,777,916. 81% of the people who were tested positive have recovered, and the total PCR tests were 2,782,233. So of the 2,782,000 tests done, 151,000 of them were positive. I was reading an article to you all yesterday, and hopefully I can get to it again. I have so much paper in front of me. It is unbelievable. We're not killing trees out here. Here it is. I found it quickly. Thank you. I was talking about the fact that Dr. Ayla, what to expect over the next 6 months of the pandemic, according to Philadelphia experts. And so I started with her yesterday and wanted to be able to continue because I still think too many of us are not taking this virus seriously, and we have got to get it together. So I'm going back to the article. This again was written by the Philadelphia Inquirer. At first they were saying, this is from Dr. Ayla's voice, that this is only spreading through person-to-person contact. You have to be in direct contact with someone from China, Germany, Italy, France. Otherwise, you were fine and it didn't affect you. Let me just make sure that I give you all who the writers of this article are. We always have to cite our sources: Tom Averill, Maria McCullough, Aubrey Whelan, and Jason Lawlin. And it was updated yesterday at 10:13 a.m. For Stanford, everything changed on April 3rd when she read that there were more African Americans being diagnosed and dying in the city of Philadelphia than any other race. Stanford's response was to start the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium, which provides free coronavirus clinics in some of the black neighborhoods hit hardest by the virus. I have been operating as a pediatric surgeon, but all surgeries were canceled because they were only doing emergencies. There was nowhere I needed to be, except testing, except being out in the community. There was no need for her to explain how deadly this virus was. Most people knew that because it was their family members that were dying. They could literally be coming from a funeral and then coming in to get lined to get tested. We would go to the churches to test people, and we would start with a prayer or a moment of silence. You'd listen to the pastor say, "I'd had a funeral," every single day. As for the next 6 months, Stanford sees her mission growing only more complex. I think in 6 months that I will still be right here testing for coronavirus. We will be at the end of the flu season, Stanford said. We will really have a good sense of people having the flu, coupled with the coronavirus on top of it, and how it affected our morbidity and mortality. We're participating with delivering the flu vaccine in both Philadelphia and Montgomery County. We're hitting all the high-risk populations. They notoriously have a hard time reaching the Black and Latinx population. As we wait for a COVID-19 vaccine, what would help, she said, is removing the barriers that keep people from getting tested. Anytime, 24 hours a day, day or night, any person should be able to walk into any hospital and get a COVID test, regardless of your insurance, regardless of whether you have an appointment or not, and it needs to be widely known. That's what needs to happen, and it is not happening. The mission, she says, goes well beyond the pandemic. I am not just here for coronavirus. I am at this point committed that we're going to work on the health outcomes of and to change the disparities that exist in the black community in Philadelphia. We have to change the narrative that black people are sicker, they die younger, they are non-compliant with medication, and they use the ER for primary care. All of that can and should be changed, and some of it is just not true. The idea that the reason why African Americans are more likely to die from the coronavirus is because they don't take care of themselves or that they have pre-existing conditions. It may be a factor, but it is not the primary reason. It is the bias that exists in the healthcare system, coupled with the lack of access, coupled with the lack of empathy. Someone's poorly controlled hypertension isn't what prevented them from getting a COVID test. This was written by Aubrey Whelan, and she's absolutely right. I've told people all the time, do not be afraid to fire your doctors. If they are dismissing you, if they seem to be doing anything other than listening to your concerns, find another doctor. There are too many of them out there. Sarah Cherry, Penn Professor of Pathology, Laboratory Medicine, and Microbiology. Research labs around the world have spent the last 6 months trying to identify existing drugs that could be repurposed to fight COVID-19. So far, only remdesivir, the antiviral, let me just make sure I spell that. Yep, remdesivir, the antiviral that Gilead scientists shelved after it failed to work against Ebola, has been a success story. University of Pennsylvania microbiologist Sarah Cherry has hard-earned insights into why COVID-19 drug discovery has been so difficult and why breakthroughs could be on the horizon. One challenge is safety. In labs like hers, they are certified to work with very scary germs. Scientists have to don double layers of gowns and gloves, plus a respirator resembling a big hat that lets you breathe through a vacuum cleaner on your back. Because doing experiments under those conditions can be difficult, researchers everywhere started out testing drug molecules on a particularly user-friendly line of monkey cells called Vero. Cherry explains, it was easier if it was easier to do. It would have been fantastic if it were true, Cherry says, but we are not Vero cells, so we don't have the monkey Vero cells. We are humans. We were misled early on because we were using cell models that were different from what happens in the human body. Early on, researchers figured out that the virus uses a cell surface protein called AC2 to break into human cells and begin replicating. But it took longer to discover that the virus cannot use the AC2 made by mice to infect the rodent cells. The virus can infect hamsters, Cherry said, but hamster models don't have as much complementary analytical technology as mouse models. That has hampered efforts to understand how coronavirus can cause life-threatening clotting problems and immune overreactions. More recently, genetically engineered mouse models with human versions of AC2 have been created. These will really help us to understand how the more complex complications evolve in human infections, she said. I think we will find effective therapeutics in the next 6 months. This was written by Marie McCullough. Alarmed by the early reports of jammed hospitals in China and Italy last winter, U.S. hospital administrators took stock of their ventilators and counted how many people specialists were available to operate them. Engineers even started to build makeshift devices as a backup, in one case using a lawn sprinkler valve. Megan Lane Fall worried it would not be enough. Lord have mercy. Who's calling? Hold on, Divine Truth, hold on. She's saying that while the breathing devices, social distancing measures that prevented thousands of cases and a better understanding of how to treat the disease, we ended up being okay, she said. That doesn't mean the projections were alarmist or wrong, said Lane Fall, who works in the ICU at Penn Presbyterian Medical Center and the Hospital of the University of Pennsylvania. Hospitals had to be ready for the worst, doubly so with a virus that no one knew so much about. Speaking of which, in the last month, my husband has been in the hospital twice, both times for surgery. In the one hospital, the measures were amazing. When we got in, they told us to take off the mask that we wore in from outside. They had all sorts of cleansing stations for us, and they gave us new masks to put on. In the second hospital that we were in, none of those things happened. People were clumped up together in the waiting area. I had to find another spot to go sit down far enough away, and the hospital just did not look clean. And so, you know, I understand that we're under a lot of stress, but if we're asking people to take these kinds of safety measures, we also want to make sure that the hospitals, the healthcare facilities that you're asking us to come into to do surgeries, take those same measures themselves. I just happen to carry a backpack with me everywhere, and Mike laughs. They laugh when I walk into the studios. I walked into the studios and there was no Lysol. Well, guess who had their own Lysol wipes in their bags, right? Never depend on anyone to make sure to take care of your own safety. Make sure you have extra everything with you at all times, if at all possible. As for treating severely COVID-19 patients, intensive care nurses and doctors have made great strides since March, learning that many patients in respiratory distress can recover without a ventilator. Some get a high-flow oxygen through a nasal cannula, a plastic tube that rests in the nostrils. At Penn, a few were fitted with astronaut-style breathing helmets ordered by one of Lane Fall's colleagues who had contacts in Italy. But generally, the sickest patients still need to go on ventilators, requiring that breathing tubes be threaded down their throats, and it remains unclear why some fare so poorly compared with patients with other respiratory diseases, Lane Fall says. And for those of you who are in my social media spaces, I put up a picture of what it is like to be intubated versus just wearing your mask. It is an uncomfortable feeling, and it continues to damage and restrict your breathing passages. So, you know, as a last resort, we want to make sure that we don't have happen. They lose a lot of weight, Lane Fall says. It's almost like they're using their own bodies for nutrition. Effective drugs remain elusive, and so we got to keep going. Let me take Divine Truth Davis. Good afternoon. Good afternoon
to you as well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. What can I do for you? Wait a minute. I'm not supposed to talk to you until 2:21. So can you hold? It's 2:15. Yeah. You hang tight. Give me 5 minutes, okay? Yeah, because once we get off the break, I want to make sure that I can have a full conversation with you without us being interrupted. All right? All right. Thank you so much. Hold on. Don't hang up. Just hold on. All right. Maureen May, nurse at Temple University Hospital and president of the PASNAP. She says the region's nurses are not optimistic about the next half a year, says Maureen May, president of the Pennsylvania Association of Staff Nurses and Allied Professionals. We all think of the next wave coming, said May, who represents 8,500 unionized nurses and healthcare workers in the state. The first 6 months of the pandemic were traumatizing for people in her profession, says May, a nurse at Temple University Hospital. She has concerns that the psychological scars on fellow nurses may linger for years. Addressing the emotional and mental strain the pandemic has caused in healthcare workers will be a priority in the months ahead. The union has created webinars for members about the challenges they're facing, because we don't think about the nurses, the people, the healthcare workers that are doing the work, that we have to now put their lives at risk because we wouldn't wear our masks, or we wouldn't stay away from the party with 200 people, or we, you know, you just named the infraction here, right? But she also thinks that her members will know what to expect should the virus surge again. We didn't the last time, she said. What may be equally difficult, though, is addressing the tensions between hospital management and staff, something I know very well about because I wrote a whole article for the Philadelphia Sun on this. Was able to talk to staff, but was not able to cite them as a source because of hospital management and the fact that they could lose their jobs when they were talking about, you know, the lack of safety measures that were there for them, and how many of them were exposed to the virus, and some of them caught it, and a few have died. So, you know, we just have to be very mindful. Temple has replaced the faulty mask. That's part of what they were talking to me about. Temple University Hospital, which serves some of the Philadelphia's poorest communities of color that have been especially hit hard by serious cases of COVID-19, was inundated with patients in the spring. Hospital staff was left dangerously understocked with masks, gowns, and gloves, she said. Tensions between workers and the hospital were exacerbated when Temple provided nurses with Chinese-made masks that didn't hold up under the rigors of patient care. Temple has replaced the faulty masks and secured reliable sources of medical supplies since then. How they managed their supply chain changed, and with that, we were able to experience better protection, May said. May is also hopeful that the coming months will see progress on legislation to help healthcare workers who contract the coronavirus. Bill from Republican State Representative Frank Farry of Langhorne and Martina White of Philadelphia, under consideration in the legislature, would aid frontline healthcare workers in disability claims resulting from COVID-19 infection by putting the burden on employers to demonstrate the workers didn't catch the illness through their jobs, because lots of people have said that they've gotten sick and, were told that they had to come back to work anyway. Lots and lots of stuff has just been happening. Charlie Haas is a Drexel Environmental. By the way, this piece was written by Jason Lawlin. Charlie Haas, Drexel Environmental Engineer, says he's a professor of environmental engineering at Drexel University, was among 239 scientists who persuaded the World Health Organization to concede that the coronavirus may be transmitted microscopically, small droplets that are released into the air just by talking or breathing. And something they talked about in the news today, and I'll go back to this article after I'm finished talking to this next guest, is that, when you're walking and you can smell cigarette smoke, but the person is X amount of feet away from you. That's how the coronavirus transmits, right? So you don't have to be 6 feet to the person or even closer. It could be far enough away, which is why we say wear your mask. If you can smell those scents long before you see them, think of the coronavirus that way. It's a great example of why you should wear your mask, whether you're indoors or outside, right? I'm going to take a quick break because I have a guest now that's we're going to talk to before our 3 o'clock hour. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WordRadio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. If you are hearing the sound of my voice, I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Weather and traffic to keep you informed for your morning commute on Wake Up with Word. Weekdays 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. hosted by Solomon Jones. Right here on Word Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
He knew. Donald Trump knew how deadly COVID was months ago, and he lied about it. Just listen.
Now it's turning out it's not just old people, Bob. Just today and yesterday, some startling facts came out. It's not just older young people, to plenty of young people.
Donald Trump knew as early as February just how deadly COVID was before anyone even died, and he did nothing about it. His indifference cost tens of thousands of black lives.
It goes through air, Bob. You just breathe the air. That's how it's passed. It's also more deadly than even your strenuous flus.
Nearly 200,000 dead. 1 in 5 are black. This virus is literally killing us, and Trump did nothing to stop it.
Well, I think, Bob, really, to be honest with you, I wanted to always play it down. I still like playing it down because I don't want to create a panic.
Too late, Mr. President.
I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Biden for president.
Come on down to Angry Deacon Ribs, located at 1019 Spring Garden Street. Without question, they have the best pork and beef ribs in Philly. Lightly smoked, full of flavor, and always tender. The bangin' brisket, pulled pork, wings, macaroni and cheese, and collard greens will have you coming back for more. Open Wednesday through Sunday with curbside pickup or delivery through Uber Eats. Give them a call at 215-769-RIBS. Come get some.
Always Best Care is a great place to work. Flexibility,
leadership, purpose,
great benefits.
There's never a dull moment.
Diversity, inclusion, compasión.
We love our jobs. If you're looking for a great place to work, you can join our compassionate Team Green. You can apply online at teamgreenabc.com or call 267-909-9248.
Teamwork makes the dream work. You're listening to The Source on Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Welcome back to The Source. As I was on my way into the studios this afternoon, I got a message from someone on social media, which is why I tell you, as a radio show host, I don't lock myself off from people. I want to hear from folks. I will vet their stories, make sure that what I'm hearing is correct, and then we'll invite them to have a conversation. This email came in. It says, Mrs. Sanders, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to reply back to my plea on behalf of this little firecracker. Divine Truth has the heart of 10 lions. She is the epitome of fearlessness. I had the honor of making her acquaintance when I introduced her former business partner to Ashanti, the singer, last November in 2019. She used to hear my voice every time her business partner shared the same meeting space, every time. I called because I had no clue I was on speakerphone. After about 2 to 3 weeks or so, I was privileged to meet the virtual acquaintance of Divine and learned that her timeshare was about to end in Vegas, and I had invited her to visit Philadelphia to showcase her talents in pursuit of filling her dreams. She was thrilled when she allowed me to sponsor her to visit. She came without delay. While she was here in Philadelphia, I introduced her to the Secretary of Pardons, Brandon Flood, and he was blown away by her. She shared her story on the police brutality and stated he would love to help stand behind her when she was ready to come forward about her matter. I invited her to meet a certain person affiliated with PhillyCam, and they ended up offering her membership and her own shows. She was that good. So to be concise, Mrs. Davis is a victim of the same exact outcome as George Floyd, but as I stated, she survived to tell the story. She was targeted by Lakewood, Colorado and Denver, Colorado police departments that were responsible. 5 knee surgeries, 1 throat surgery, half of her uterus removed, broken neck in 3 places, fractured broken tailbone, glass removed from both eyes because of the way she was forcibly removed from her vehicle by force when police broke through her window and dragged her out head first. Mrs. Davis suffered severe head trauma that she is still experiencing to this day. Police broke both her kneecaps and both legs. She was confined to a wheelchair for more than 5 years and had to learn how to walk all over again. She has a protrusion in her back and is currently awaiting neck surgery to have titanium plates to replace the 7th vertebrae in her neck. The number 7 vertebrae in her neck. She was denied medical attention at the time of her assault and instead was sent to the local prison where she hemorrhaged for more than at least 2 months straight. She was attacked by more than 22 plus of 38 police officers who were all witnesses of this bad act on the date in question. Immediately after unmerited complaint matters were dealt with, Ms. Davis filed a civil lawsuit and was victorious, filing in pro state status when more than 78 lawyers denied the chance to represent her interests. She was violated in every way imaginable and has paperwork in the form of her discovery that shows where she is documented as being deceased 8.5 minutes before she showed up to the scene of the alleged crime where she was baited to come to. Miss Davis literally died, but she was blessed to come back to life to tell the story. And so I have all the documented information because, you know, I have to ask for it. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, lady. How are you?
Good afternoon to you.
Oh.
Thank you for asking. I'm blessed.
Listen to me.
Thank you for asking.
Where are you living now?
I am calling you from Lakewood, Colorado right now, and then I'm in Denver picking up my sister. But before we go any further, I'd like to say everything that you said is true, except for the part with the wheelchair, the 5 years. That happened with RTD. That's how I became disabled in the first place.
That happened with what?
Part mixed over. With RTD, as in bus transportation, I was a passenger on the bus, and I was in a wheelchair
then.
for 5 years with that. So that's where I'm getting that from. But I've had disabled space for 21 years. But everything else is definitely true.
Oh, wow. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
If you Google my legal name, I don't know if you're aware of what case law is.
I am.
Okay. If you Google my legal name, there are 5 articles out there that I did not give to any of the attorneys. Never met these guys. They're in Baltimore, Tennessee, New York, Washington. They are using me right now for any 1983 excessive force because I won my case.
So they're using your case as a case study to win other cases across the country?
You can, yes, ma'am. You can use my name right now as we speak.
Okay. Take back, because the WRD listeners are completely stunned just from the little bit that I read. Take us back to that incident. So you've been in a wheelchair for over 21 years. Are you okay with talking about the incident?
I'm actually not in a wheelchair anymore, but yes, I am. I'm no longer in a wheelchair. I'm ambulatory.
Okay.
Ambulatory. What happened is I was assaulted by the Lakewood police, and this is all under discovery. Everything I'm saying is born under truth, you know. on their oath as well as their statements. I have them in black and white. In 08, 09, 2010, and 2012. 2012 was the last time. 08, the first time was for failure to appear for barking dogs that weren't even ours. We live in a predominantly, really, what would you say, 93% white neighborhood. And I just got back from Chicago like 3 weeks later because my daughter was 29 now. Her senior year, she kept passing out. You know, she'd wake up in the morning and I couldn't figure out what's wrong with this baby. She's 17. And her face was like, she'd hit the floor. Well, anyway, she had this cyst on the back of her head. She spent 3 weeks in Children's Hospital. Long story short, I'm 2 blocks from my house with my cousin. We're coming from the studio, and we get pulled over because the car was up. The hood was up. The radiator was messed up on the car. We've been putting water in it, you know, that trick. And these officers swarm out of nowhere. What are you doing in this neighborhood? You know, why are you here? And we're like, what? Excuse us? And simultaneously, I go, I live here. And he goes, she lives here. Now, I just had knee surgery on my left knee. I was wearing just a red flannel jean skirt, Converse shoes or boots. And I told the officer, he says, what's your name? And immediately, I gave everybody the same name, Divine Truth Davis. His name is Officer Lucy. He says, Divine Truth Davis, what kind of name is that? I go, it's biblical and it's mine. He goes, you're lying. You step out of the car. I go, officer, I'm not lying. That's my name. He goes, well, what's your address? I give him my complete address, gave him my date of birth, Social Security, and everything. He walked back to his car, came right back, and was like, get out of the car. Get the F out of the car. I was like, excuse me, you didn't get the F out of the car. I was like, what did I do? He's like, you have a warrant out for your arrest. I was like, that's impossible. I don't get in trouble. I got out of the car, hobbled over. I got out of the car. He grabbed me by my right arm. I said, will you please be careful because I just had knee surgery. Hobbled over to the car. He put my hands behind my back. I asked if they could be in my front because I have fibromyalgia. I was in a bus accident March 30th of 2000. That's where the wheelchair part came in. That's where that came in. And so I said, sir, can you please handcuff me in the front? He took my arm and wrenched them so far behind my back, slammed my hand on the hood of the hood of the car. My cousin, Carmelo, called my sister. Hey, you need to come down here. They just arrested your sister, blah, 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 blah. My sister came down there, I mean, literally in a minute, it seemed like. And we live maybe 2 blocks from the park. She gets down there and says, where were you taking her? I'm taking her to jail. Well, we're taking her to jail for what? I got her. She's a fugitive. We're taking her to jail. I go to jail. I get to the jail. This officer tells me, go into this room. Before I go in the room, you got to read the rules on the wall. So I'm like, okay, I'm reading the rules. He goes, before you go in there, I'm going to need you to take your shoes off. I said, sir, I can't take my shoes off. My hands are cuffed behind my back. They put me in this little holding cell. I'm in the cell for 8 freaking hours. Oh, my God. I'm hurting so freaking bad. Next thing I know, the door's open. This Hispanic sheriff says, read the wall. I read the wall. He says, go into room 3. Go into cell 3. I go, okay. I go into cell 3. He tells me, get on my hands and knees. I'm like, get on my hands and knees. I go, sir, I just had surgery on my knees. I can't get on my hands and knees. Right away, I start bawling. For one, I'm already hurting for, all the commotion being slammed around. For 2, I'm a survivor of rape and molestation. I was always on my knees, from the age of 4 to 8 years old. So immediately that came across me, So I'm like, I can't get on my knees. Can you please just tell me I can't? Can I just sit on this bench right here? He said, absolutely not. I'm like, can I please? So I started crying, and he said, you're resisting arrest. Next thing I knew, 8 to 10 sheriffs come in, throw me to the ground, girl. Throw me to the ground, rip my boots off, rip my jewelry off. I don't get booked in for at least 5 more hours later. By the time it's morning, I tell the lady, the nurse there who works at the Jefferson County Detention Center, what happened to me. She says, well, do you want to talk to somebody? I said, yeah, can I get a pen and paper? Can I please write a complaint? I wrote that morning, pen and paper or pencil, to the watch commander. I wrote to the chief. I wrote to anybody who would listen, internal affairs, okay? They got upset. 2009 and 10, same deal. All this stuff was dismissed. They came to my house.
So wait a minute. So the first incident, this incident that you're telling me, when did this happen? What year?
2008.
2008. That's what I thought. Okay.
2008.
So what happened in
Second
2009 and 2010?
2009 was the incident. Same thing. So it appeared for barking dogs. And all this is in writing. This is so funny to me right now. It wasn't before, but it really is. Same deal. I was arrested, I want to say, by this time I was pulled over by Lakewood police. They said I didn't have license, insurance, and registration. I had all that stuff. Come to find out, it was a barking dog thing, which was dismissed again. We have a very, very racist neighbors. We had to get affidavits from 5 of our neighbors, which is why the case was dropped. I had to show my ticket saying that I left a month in advance, all of that stuff. It was totally dropped. Okay? So I just went to the hospital because they exacerbated my fibromyalgia each freaking time. So in 2010, I want to say maybe that was the one with Officer Lucy. 2010, I got arrested for giving the name of Divine Fruit Davis.
Wait a minute. They arrested you for giving your legal name?
For giving, no, it isn't my legal name. It's my biblical name.
Okay.
But I gave him, I gave him all my, and all the stuff is in writing once again.
Yes.
I gave him all my address and all that stuff. But I was arrested for that. And I was transported. No, this was the last time, 2010. This is when I was driving to go pick up my husband at my mother-in-law's house at 5:30 in the morning because he had to be at work at 6:30. I was a block away from my mother-in-law's house, and this guy said, this black guy said I didn't have I drive a Benz, an SUV with the handicap plates, and he told me the tail light wasn't working. And I started working on the inside where I was at. And so I rolled the window down 2.5 to 3 inches. We were across the street from my mother-in-law's house. And I said, "Officer, can you do me a favor, please?" And he said, "Sure. What can I do for you?" I said, "Before you take me or whatever it is that you have to do, can I please call my husband real quick?" And he allowed me to do that. My husband came out and told him, "Hey, can you please be careful with her? Please be careful with her. She got beat up by Lakewood twice." So he transported me to Denver, where I sat in a paddy wagon, I guess, if you will. I was in there while we picked up maybe 3 other people, I want to say, for about an hour. Then I got to the detention center on, I think it's District 2. I actually used to date the sergeant there, which is really crazy. He wouldn't help me listen to anything I had to say. Officer Joseph Unser.
You know what's so frightening to me as you recount this story is how matter-of-fact that you are, that your trauma is so deep, that you are so matter-of-fact about all of this.
Yeah, I know it like combing your hair or like brushing your teeth. It's so routine. I'm in the car with my daughter. There's 3 cameras in here. When we get in here, I've got to take routes. Now, mind you, I was a foster child. I was emancipated. I have never broken the law. I don't have a record to save my life. The only record I have is with these guys.
So let me ask
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Let me ask you this question. To what do you attribute all these things happening to you? Because I have to tell you...
Racism. It is because I exercise my constitutional right. I'm a black woman who drives a Mercedes-Benz, who lives in a 400... Oh, my God, that's so loud. I'm so sorry. Who lives in a $450,000 house, an all-white neighborhood, and I told on them what they didn't want us to do back in slavery, back in 1863 or whatever. I told what Massa did to me. How dare I go tell? So this last 2 times when I went to Denver, when that guy dropped me off, I still have blue and black hair. The lady says, "Take off your weave." I said, "Ma'am, I'm not wearing a weave." Right away, there was a confrontation. Officer Guzman, Sheriff Guzman, a Hispanic lady. I said, "Ma'am, I'm not wearing a wig." The black lady says, "Yes, she is." I had my hands wide open, like rock, paper, scissors. You know how you play that game? Wide open. I put my hand on top of my head to show them that I didn't have anything with my left hand straight out. They grabbed my arm, wrenched my shoulder, tore it by 8 centimeters, wrenched my neck. That's how my neck got messed up in the first place. September 10th, 2010. That's how it got messed up. So when I went to go report on them, they beat me up again, February 25th of 2012. But this time, according to a discovery from 2008, there was a tracker on this very Mercedes that I'm driving right now. And for all I know, it's still on here, ma'am. It is still on here. According to Officer Todd Clifford, now listen to this. This is deep. He said he saw me by my house at 11:35 p.m. February 25th, 2012, Obama's second term, election year, leap year is 15, right? But if you look at their background report, their chronological timestamp background report, my stage premeditated death, there was a vehicle search on my car at 11:27.
So you have all the. So you have all the.
Writing, baby. Yes, ma'am.
You have all the paperwork,
right?
Right.
Team. Yes, ma'am. The dispatch officer, Monica Navarro, flipped the switch to find out where I was at. 38 officers on the scene in front of the credit union at the West Terra Credit Union, 98 Wadsworth Boulevard. Wow. Pulled me out of my window, lured me to the space where there were guns and rifles and pistols in my face. Handicap plates, mind you. When I pull in, there's 4 cameras that caught me, okay? 2 that caught me right away, and the ATM caught all the cars from where they were facing it. So when I pull in, I stop. I'm talking to my cousin on the phone. Come on, because I already called my daughter. I'm skipping the story here because I know I've been talking long. I get to the right before, probably maybe 10 feet away from the stop sign. You know, slow down, and I see all this commotion, and I'm screaming. I'm like, oh, my God. Telling my cousin, I'm like, they're going to kill me. Oh, my God, they're trying to kill me. He's like, what's going on, cuz? I'm like, dude, 2, 4, 6, 8, 3, 6, 9, 18. There are 19 fucking there's 19 to 22 cop cars here. Oh, my God, there's 38 officers here. There's SWAT here. There's dogs. There's everything. It looks like the civil rights movement as well as set it off with Queen Latifah, baby. I kid you not.
Let me ask you this, Divine
Yes,
Truth.
ma'am. Go ahead.
Do you have all this video recording? Were you able to, in Discovery, pull this video from all this stuff?
They snatched my phone because I was a damn fool and told them that I was recording, and that's when Sergeant Paulson said, well, since you're recording, you're resisting arrest, and smashed the damn window in my face with his baton and dragged me out by my hair. I am 5 foot even. I weigh 108 pounds, rendering my neck even more. Because, see, I was already on the books to have surgery 12 days on my neck. Prior to that, that's why I hired that attorney, who I'm now suing the attorney and the credit union because they said they weren't recording. Well, according to statistics, everybody knows that banks and credit unions hold that shit for 5 years. Please excuse me, for 5 years. But according to the FDIC rule number under suspicious activity number 351, 1313, and 131918, they had 30 days to support it, to report it to their superiors, their directors, 5 people on the board, which they
Hello?
got to them.
So you're going in and out a little bit. I'm
so sorry.
That's all right, because I can sense your emotion. I can sense that you've just gone through a lot. And so I know people here in Philadelphia have been trying to help you. I know people out there in Colorado have been trying to help you.
Nobody has helped me. I talked to 79 lawyers, honey. My death was staged. The doctor said I was lying when I asked for the EMTs. The EMTs was dispatched at 11:33. So how can dude even see me at 11:35? Okay? He dispatched from in front of that bank 8.5 minutes before I was even there.
So let me ask you this. So hold on one second for me, because what you're saying is, and you know, there are lots of people listening to this.
I'm saying that they were killing me. They staged my death, a premeditated murder. They were going to get rid of my black part because I'm so smart. That's what I'm saying.
Except you are still alive, and so that poses a problem.
I am still alive to tell it. Yes,
Hold on one second.
And the bank got rid of all the rest.
Hold on one second. Hold on.
Yes,
because I have to take a quick break. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WordRadio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. I know that you all are hearing this. There's all sorts of documentation that comes in through my email before I put anybody on the air. This lady literally has gone through so much trauma, and you know, the case studies on her, it's insane. And I think right now there are lots of people you know, really trying to help her because they don't know what's going to happen with her next, right? And so we're trying to figure out, I'm giving her a space to tell her story, and then we'll go from there. I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and we'll be right back after these messages.
As a business owner, hiring and developing people from the community that your company serves is one of the best ways to show commitment to that community. Let Word Radio help with Livelihood, our new initiative that connects Philadelphians with companies like yours. We'll feature your business, open employment opportunities, and resources to connect your company with talent and ensure that you reach your target demographic. To learn more about how Livelihood can help you build your team, visit wordworks.com. That's WURD works.com. Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network.
Are you hungry today? Have your taste buds been sufficiently pampered? Call Eatable Delights for succulent and juicy turkey wings, no-filler crab cakes, or tender smoky beef ribs. You can pick up curbside or get delivery in Philadelphia, Montgomery, South Jersey, Delaware, and Bucks County. Call 215-236-3900 or stop by 1540 Wadsworth Avenue. That's 215-236-3900 because even your taste buds deserve pampering. And tell them Solomon Jones sent you.
2020 is the year of voter options. We have many different ways to exercise one of the most important activities in our lifetime. Some of us might be voting by mail, but the rest of us can still vote safely while masked up and social distancing in person at your local polling locations. If you're in Philadelphia, learn more about where your polling location might be at either votespa.com or philadelphiavotes.com. For more information on how to vote in Pennsylvania, visit states.aarp.org/Pennsylvania. Vote early.
Word Radio presents the following wellness tip to support our listeners with mindfulness and motivation as we continue to navigate the pandemic together.
Hi, this is Halana, your resident health and wellness coach, with tips to help you stay well. Many of us have heard this term before, but may not know what it really means. Compassionate living brings mindfulness and peace to the center of your daily life. Compassionate living can look like this. Number 1, be gentle with yourself and those around you. Number 2, choose to speak kindly to others, even when you're upset. Number 3, become a good listener and practice empathy at home and at work. We sometimes think in order to live with compassion, we have to become someone else. Not so. In fact, allowing peacefulness to be at the center of our daily interactions is something we can practice every day. Go ahead and try it today. Stay well with Word. Happy living.
Stay well with Word. Connect with us at wordradio.com.
You're listening to The Source on Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Welcome back to The Source. Lord have mercy. Before I put anyone on the air with me, I always ask them to send me corroborating documentation because, and I want you all to hear this lady beyond the emotion that she is putting out, because if you had gone through the things that she had gone through, then you would have felt the same way, if not worse. I don't even know how she's even able to have the conversation with me. I have limited time to continue this dialogue, but I'm also going to ask her to continue to send me the documentation so that I can take a look at it myself, on what took place. Divine Truth, 2 things. Are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
2 things. What is going on with you right now? Because I have other guests that are getting ready to call in, and I want to make sure that I got you on the air so you could share your story. What is it that's bothering you now? What has you so afraid right now?
Well, right now, for the last 2 weeks, I actually initiated a lawsuit against the attorney who represented me, Douglas Romero from the Colorado Christian Defense. I only hired him because he had Colorado Christian Defense in there. He was actually sanctioned and stole my money, didn't file my case for a year. But I live right by the police department. I'm so afraid for my life. I literally just got my coffin running. I'm driving my coffin. To tell you, if I tell you I wasn't afraid for my life, I'd be lying to death. Right now. I'm definitely afraid of my life. So I'm filing a lawsuit against not only the attorney, but as well the attorneys, as well as the hospital and the psychologist, as well as the city and the Lakewood again. I'm going to open all this back up because this is ridiculous. Because you know what? They're going to continue to do this, and they're going to do it to somebody else.
So let me
ask. When I look in their discovery, all you see is it's the same thing that I'm saying all over. They've been getting away with this.
So let me.
I think I've uncovered the Klan. Go ahead, ma'am.
Let me say this to you. You are quite cognizant of what's been going on around this country. You are very aware that oftentimes black and brown people are not safe. What I'm concerned about with you is that you're moving full speed ahead with a group of people that has all sorts of legalese behind them. Who is supporting you? What is the solution that you're looking for through all of this? Tell us.
What I'd like to do is have those people fired. Take your mask off. You shouldn't be an officer. That's the solution. First, I'd like to say this has nothing and absolutely to do with money. This is about my constitutional rights. I have the same rights that they do. And every day that I wake up, I am violated. I think about how they tried to kill me, how they're still trying to kill me. The courts are aware. I took it all the way to the Supreme Court by myself, a pro se litigant, and I won. And only 2 of the officers were reprimanded. Only 2 because I had crappy counsel.
But here's the thing. So, Divine Truth, let me say this to you. You already know the way the system is set up, that officers can be fired and get their jobs back or reprimanded and still keep their jobs. So what is the solution that you want the WURD listeners, what do you want us to hear from?
I want them to see that I have uncovered a Klan. A Klan of officers, a Klan of judges, a Klan of doctors and lawyers. I live in a Republican state. You know that, right? Colorado is number 1, A1. They just changed Stapleton, the old airport, from that Klansman's name. They need to know that my ancestors are speaking to me, and I'm listening. They can't continue to do this. My grandbaby, my Glam princess, she's mulatto. My son-in-law, blonde hair and blue eyes. My daughter, who's sitting next to me, Hispanic and black and lesbian. We're not going for this. We're not turning the other cheeks. We're not marching. We're not doing that. I was a foster child, emancipated at 16. Please excuse my emotion, the way that I am talking to you, because failure is never an option. Because I cannot quit. I will not back down.
Right. So the reason why I'm able to calmly have this conversation with you is because I've been trained to have these kinds of conversations. So I hear your trauma and want to make sure that you are fully heard. So you continue. If I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that you continue to fear for your life. That you're still in that community with that police department, and that you're going to continue to fight. No matter what.
Those people have got to be off this force. Yeah, they've got. I have to have surgery on my neck next month in 3 different places. They get to go on with their lives. I get a occipital nerve block, a suprascapular nerve block. My humerus is missing. Half my uterus is missing. I need 2 knee replacements right now as we speak. So why do they get to go with their lives? If I wasn't a person of color, I'd be suing still, because that's what they do, right? Yeah.
Oh my God!
If you can't beat them, join them, baby.
Yeah, Divine Truth. One person texted me and asked me this question.
Let me tell you my legal name. Google LaTanya Davis out of Lakewood, Colorado, right now.
LaTanya.
That's me. L-A capital T-O-N-Y-A Davis. You can go on my page right now and see it on Facebook. You can see me on Instagram. I'm not hiding. I'm not wearing any sheets.
Yeah, but we want to.
My fist is in the air.
Yeah, this is Black Talk Media, and you have quite a few.
Look at all the stories. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
This is Black Talk Media, and there's quite a few folks that listen to this station, and they have been having these kinds of conversations with me privately over the time that I have been here. So no one is negating. And again, I asked for the documentation, and it was sent, and I'm going to ask you to send as much more that you can for me, so that I can have it in front of me. But what the lesson
I really do, sister. Thank you.
Oh, not a problem. The lesson that I want people to learn from this, though, is that we're not safe, right? I told a story that a couple of weeks ago I was in Virginia with our chief public defender here in Philadelphia and was stopped by a police officer that was just not good at all. But I have the training, and so I calmed him down by not responding to him in the way he was treating me. The lesson that I want people to take from this is when these kinds of things happen, stay alive to tell your stories so that you can get the support that you need, so that you can end up in court, and have people to represent you and be around you and with you.
Exactly why I'm doing this. They don't want to represent me, so I have to represent my own blackness.
Well, let me say this to you. Let me say this to you, LaTanya or Divine Truth. Let me say this to you. Be aware that even those lawyers can be afraid sometimes, right? Depending on what's going on.
That's why nobody took it.
Yeah.
That's why nobody took it. But I have rights like they do, and I'm smart as a whip.
Yeah.
And the judge is everything that I put in. The judge is like, okay, Miss Davis. Okay, Miss Davis. Okay, Miss Davis. He is knocking their other side down.
Yeah.
The bank hid the video. The bank hid. First said they were recording. Now you're not recording. I call the FBI. This is how deep it is. They're supposed to call the FBI. They're under corrupt crime. I spoke with Operator 9700. I spoke with the FDIC. Yes, this is bad.
Yeah, so there's a question here. So let me ask you this. Did you try the NAACP, the ACLU, the Urban, anybody?
I haven't called them lately, but when this first started, nobody wanted to talk to me. Because, ma'am, listen to this. I fall under the ADA.
Right,
okay?
American Disabilities Act. Right.
Yes, ma'am. I wrote letters to attorney generals. One of the people at attorney generals just told me, don't file your case down here because it's going to get lost again. I had to do an appeal because they kept dismissing my stuff.
Okay.
12 days I put my stuff in there.
Okay, so
14 days. It's crazy, girl.
So here's the thing. There are people here in Philadelphia that want to help you and will be willing to help you. I
need a bulldog of an attorney. I need somebody who's not scared.
Okay.
Somebody who can work out of state, in state. I can fly. You know what I mean? I can do what I need to do.
Okay.
Drive, whatever.
So let us hope that there is someone listening that is a bulldog attorney that will be able to take this case on and work with you through this, because you're doing it on your own and it's not been easy, I can imagine. So I want to thank you.
She was beat up by ICE because they thought she was an immigrant.
Yeah, it's a lot going on, and so
it's crazy. Yeah.
What I'm going to say to you is, oh gosh, I've got to get off because I just realized I spent the last 40 minutes talking to you, and I just want to thank you so much. Continue to send the documentation my way to the email address that you have, and then we're going to follow up with you, and I'm going to follow up with the people in Philadelphia. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you so much, sis.
Thank you for your time.
Stay safe. Please stay safe. All right.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. That's all I know how to do these days.
All right, honey. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
All right. Bye-bye. Oh, if in my 50-something years of living, I had not seen, experienced, and heard stories like this, I would say that was a fantastic story. But I have seen it. I have heard it. I have experienced it with my own children, one of my own children. So I know what can happen, in these cases. And so we have had on this show, I've had conversations about what to do when approached by the police, how you manage yourselves, because not all cops are bad people. Let's just get there, right? There are plenty of wonderful police officers, and I know some of you are going to disagree with me, but there are plenty of people that get into the police force to do the right things and to work on behalf of their constituency. There are, in each of those things, rogue police officers that are doing things that are not okay. And so we want to make sure that when you hear these kinds of stories, that the lessons that you take from them is to really be mindful as you travel, and especially as things are heating up in this country, right? There's lots going on here, lots of hate groups, Proud Boys and the Boogaloos, and the Proud Boys have been connected to and tied to the police departments around the country. So while this lady's story might seem fantastic to the average person, I want you all to start doing your research and paying attention to what's going on. Okay, you are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WordRadio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. If you are hearing the sound of my voice, I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Recovery starts with a call. Pennsylvania's Substance Use Disorder Hotline is staffed by real people who are trained to help. They're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They'll get you or your loved one into treatment regardless of your access to insurance. If you or someone you know is suffering from addiction, call 1-800-662-HELP. Recovery starts with a call.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
Want the latest in Word swag? Check out the shop tab on WordRadio.com. Hoodies, tees, and more in a variety of colors. The shop tab on WordRadio.com. Show the world that you're all about black. Talk Media.
Listen to Laborers Live.
We created the weekend. We created the 40-hour work week. We just want enough to feed our family, be able to send our children to college, and let our next generation do better than we did.
To people that might have forgot how important unionism is in a country like the United States. People now infringing on our 8-hour workday, kind of work people more than 8 hours without overtime, kind of work people without benefits. In the long run, everybody's getting a fat paycheck except the worker. So this is really a wake-up call for America.
The struggle is continuous. Tune in to Laborers Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Sponsored by LESIT, the Laborers Employers Cooperation Education Trust of the Laborers District Council of Philadelphia and vicinity.
Local 332, Sam Staten Jr. Business Manager. Local 57, Esteban Vera Business Manager. Local 135, Dan Woodall Jr. Business Manager. Local 413, James Harper Jr. Business Manager. The Laborers District Council, Ryan Boyer Business Manager, and Tony Staten, Executive Director of LESIT.
You're listening to The Source on Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Welcome back to The Source. Before we go to our next guest, Woody. How are you, Woody?
Oh, gosh, I don't feel so good on the stomach right now, because usually when things get to me emotionally, they go right to my stomach.
Yep.
That's the fat man in me. Well, all I can tell you is that young lady, I don't know what else we can do besides to try to make a short film out of that thing, because you have to, so it can be used as an example for all other police districts all over the country. Because something like that, all police aren't bad, but that was horrible. I mean, I never heard of anything like that, and for her to have the kind of memory she does,
and the way she's reciting the case law and the you can tell, you know, there's something there. And when how many more movies are we going to watch of people who have lost their lives that didn't live to tell the story?
That's right.
And it had to be reenacted through other people. I mean, come on already. We watched George Floyd. We watch a man sit in that man's neck and chew gum for 8 minutes, right? And he died. If anybody in America heard that story and said all of that is fantastic, then you have not been paying attention to what's been going on in this country for God knows how long, that we've now have cameras. And, you know, I've had people who have gone through things like this, and no one will take the case because they are afraid. They're afraid, Woody.
But they won't. You don't have to worry about them taking the case. Once you make an example with a short film that now uses that you can use as an example, something to help keep at least the police that are there that are good aware that this kind of thing can happen over and over and over again. And here's the information right here. George Floyd. If they didn't have that on video, nobody would have believed it.
And still we're fighting to make sure that that person is held accountable. That it was manslaughter because he feared for his life. Like all the things that they say and come up with.
Yes, ma'am.
You know?
I'm just hurt. And look, it made me start thinking, every woman, please, every one of you girls, watch out for yourselves when I think about all the murders that happen, and particularly for those that are supposed to be helping to protect us. That gives you a sad feeling. So I'm not going to hold you. I just wanted you to know that I was concerned, and I had to call in to say something about that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Woody.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, that was a lot, and I'm still processing it. And if you all have been listening to this radio show, you have heard me tell the stories, my own personal story of my having to take on an entire police department, how they called over to make sure that I was who I said I was. And if I didn't stand, unlike this woman, though, I did not make a public scene about any of it. Nobody knew until after I fought them for an entire year and won against an entire police department. And then 6 years after that is when I opened my mouth and started talking about it, and everything was corroborated. And so we want to be mindful not to dismiss people because the story sounds fantastic. there are things going on out here that no one wants to talk about, no one wants to deal with, and lots of people would probably not even have spoken to her, even with the corroborating evidence that she sent. But we have to pay attention. We can't keep wringing our hands and going, oh my God, another person has died. We can't keep wringing our hands and saying, someone else has been hung and has been labeled a suicide. We have to be incredibly intentional about our movements as we go about this country right now. Intentional, okay? All right, I'm going to switch topics, and hopefully this is going to be much lighter. Deborah Keys Wright joins us today with her consulting business partner in educational equity, Nicole Anderson, to discuss reimagining schools with a racial equity lens. In 2018, Nicole Anderson became the founder and CEO of Nicole Anderson Associates Consulting, LLC. She locked arms with researchers, practitioners, and experts. All right, I'll get Chris in a minute. She locked arms with researchers, practitioners, and experts in the field to deliver a unique systemic approach to providing professional development services that serve the needs of educators around the state of California and the nation. Ultimately, she and her team strive to build the capacity of educational leaders in order to close educational equity gaps seen in the school system. In 22 years of service in education, Nicole has served as a developer and facilitator of professional learning services, as well as an advocate for educational equity work on numerous ways around the nation. She recently held the position as the first diversity and equal access executive in the history of the Association of California School Administrators, ACSA, for almost 4 years. In this role, she led work focused on equity and diversity, including the facilitation of statewide professional learning for ACSA leaders and state board, coordination of the California Equity Leadership Alliance, as well as the development of networks for administrators of diverse backgrounds. Her work includes the development of a research team that provides research-based content and conducts state case studies of educational leaders around the state on their journey to closing educational equity gaps. As an ACSA member, she served as the chair of ACSA's Equity Committee, formerly known as EADS, Equity, Achievement, and Diversity for Success, where she focused on leading the work of implementing a system that will effectively address the beliefs of ACSA around equity for students and leaders in California. Her work has truly carved a path for educational leaders to be empowered and equipped to build capacity to close educational equity gaps around the state, nation, and the world. As a practitioner, Nicole served as an elementary principal in Vallejo, California, where she also held positions as a site administrator for 10 years. This included high school assistant principal, dean, and vice principal in Vallejo City Unified School District. She was also a leadership teacher, Spanish teacher, and activities director for 6 years at Jesse and Bethel High School in Vallejo, which is named after her grandfather. She follows in his footsteps as an advocate for equity and social justice for students of color, as well as all historically marginalized groups. In her current role as an educational and racial equity consultant, she and her team are successfully serving school sites, districts, county offices, school boards, superintendent research firms, and associations in addition to multiple sectors across the nation. Their systemic focus on safety and effectively supporting the work of their clients has been instrumental in truly ensuring that educational racial equity is realized for the success of all, both personally and professionally. Nicole's journey continues to be possible with the support of her husband of 20 years, Derek Anderson, their 3 children, Trinity, DJ, and Isaiah, and a host of family and friends. So, Deborah, you're going to begin the discussion speaking from the lens of school board governance and their roles in dismantling racial inequities in their respective districts. And I am going to ask you about a conversation I just had with some school board people and leadership folks around this very conversation. Welcome, Deborah and Nicole.
Hi.
Welcome to you both.
Andrea.
How are you? I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I'm having to pivot from a really hard conversation. Deborah, I don't know if you heard that conversation before yours.
I heard just a bit of it, yeah.
It was
Yeah.
it was rough.
I
It
was
was rough.
listening to it. Yeah.
It was rough. And so, I'm pivoting because the conversations we're about to have now between you and I and Nicole is one where if we get racial equity in schools, people will stop calling the police for things like a barking dog. People will stop, people will go to school and understand that black and brown folks have just the right to survive and thrive in this country like everyone else, right? And it all starts in schools. I did a panel discussion last week at Cabrini University, and I said then, and I mean it, and I'm going to say it again, the first time our children are introduced to police officers is through school. And usually in elementary school, where teachers say, I can't deal with them, and I'm calling the cops, and they have those children dragged out of school and away from their parents because the child was disruptive, quote unquote, and did not listen to the teacher. All right, Deborah,
this
start.
Is serious. Right, no problem. This is really serious. And listen to the students that you had on yesterday. They are really getting this work done.
Yes.
I think we have really kicked off the wrong generation of children.
Yes, we did.
And they are about the business. And the schools have to make sure they pay attention to when schools were closed or, because of COVID, and these students had a chance to see all of this racial unrest going on and participated in the marching and all of that. They are equipped to come back to the schools now to demand change because they have experienced this. They are really sick and tired of it. It's not that it's their first experience with it. So really focusing on equity by itself is a heavy lift. Now you couple that with focusing on race, which is a very uncomfortable subject for most individuals, but it's a necessary conversation. When you talk about equity, you must talk about race. You have to isolate the race because there is an undercurrent there. And with school boards, they definitely have to make sure that they're paying attention to and being able to identify inequitable practices in their school system. What policies do they have in place that perpetuate this? You can't just continue to do what you've always done, but you have to be very deliberate and intentional about focusing in on what are we doing as the leaders, as the policymakers, as the individuals responsible for setting the vision of this district. What are we going to do? So another hard thing, Andrea, is finding out if all board members embrace that there is an inequity.
Yes.
Because as you know, as a former board member, everybody's belief system is not the same.
Absolutely.
And you have different individuals coming. But my thing is, you have different belief systems, but when you're at that board table, there's only one belief system, and it's focusing on those students, and that's it. But it's hard to differentiate for some board members on what they feel personally instead of what's best for children.
Right.
And that's why they're there, And Nicole will definitely go more into the whole racial thing. That's why I wanted to definitely have her on there, because working with boards, it is so important that they understand, because they cannot lead if they're not truly in alignment with it and believe in it. They can't lead.
So we have a wrinkle. And here's the wrinkle that I see, and you and Nicole can address this. I love that. School districts are now hiring diversity and equity inclusion officers, right? You laughing, but Mother's going right in. I am going right in. And they say, see, we have a diversity and equity and inclusion officer, and sometimes that diversity and equity inclusion officer is someone of color. In this last several days, I have gotten more emails and text messages about one diversity and equity officer who happens to be someone of color, who sat in front of a whole equity committee and said, well, we don't need to have more black teachers here because there's no data that proves that. A child complained about her treatment in the school, and well, that's just one person's issue, and we don't have to do this. And so what advice do you have for school boards when they're seeking to hire someone of that caliber? And are they there to protect the school district, or are they there to make sure that students and families and educators are on the right path to racial equity? Whoever wants to take that on, please go ahead.
I'm just going to say a little bit, then I'm going to let Nicole chime in. Because you know, I reacted with that, laughing about that, because I am so tired of hearing that when we have a diversity equity officer. That is not the answer. That's a knee-jerk reaction. And usually, and this is not to downplay anyone who has been trained to be a diversity officer, but they learn that. You learn the research, you know what diversity means and what it looks like, but that does not mean it's transferable into the school system.
Right.
And that's where the boards have to really pay attention. Just because you hire that person, that they still need some direction from the Board of Education. So this is what we expect, not to just say come in there because you know equity. And that doesn't mean it. Like again, it's transferring over to what the best needs, the needs for those children. It doesn't work that way, and that is a knee-jerk reaction when they say, "Well, we had it," and that's just checking the box, really. That's to pacify other people to say, yep, see, we're doing this. We have a person, and it's usually, they say we have a department, it's one person.
Yes.
And that's usually what it is. So, Nicole, what would you say? Because I know you deal with this as well, Nicole.
I do. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and thank you again for having me on the show. I would speak from my personal experience, and I appreciate the long bio that you lost all your breath from reading that long. I appreciate it. I was like, oh, yeah, I did do that. I forgot about that. It's a great reminder of all the work. But I had the pleasure of having that position. I was the first equity executive. It had a long title you couldn't remember for the Association of California School Administrators, which was very historical for us. And I say that because in those lessons learned, what I found is that while I was hired to do a job, the vision for that job wasn't clear. And so I had a parallel of work going on. I actually had 3 tracks of work going on. So it was this personal kind of journey, right, that I had to really look at myself. I was a Black woman. I had my own experiences. I had my own beautiful story, but I also had my own barriers, my own biases. And so my own journey had to be looked at first because, as you said, there are many who get those positions who are often women and people of color. So that in itself is a barrier to the work if we're not really cognizant of our own space where we are in our journey. But that second track was, how did I walk into those offices where I had colleagues, and I'm the only one, by the way, who's holding this work, right? And I have a title. So I naturally bring a presence that makes people uncomfortable. And so without the vision from leadership to say, here's what we're doing, here's what equity means to us, here's what we're addressing, and here's this person's role. And, oh, by the way, it's not just that person who holds the work. We're all holding the work.
Right.
It's the fabric of our organization. Without setting that tone from leadership, then it becomes even more challenging when it's time to go to the third part of the work, which to actually support those external stakeholders. So in school districts, it's often students and families, right? And we're providing services for them. In the association where I work, we were providing services to administrators.
Right.
But if we internally weren't able to address what issues we had, then we couldn't provide optimal services for the people that we said we wanted to serve. So those positions, a lot of times what I'm doing now and working with school boards and districts who are considering those positions, which, by the way, I get to spend a lot of time coaching equity directors, right, and executives, because this is where, again, the work is troubling, but it's powerful because we have these positions. 5 years ago, we didn't have these positions. They weren't popular. As a matter of fact, it was actually kind of taboo to even have those conversations. So at the end of the day, what I'm finding is that if organizations, whether it's nonprofits, any sector that holds on to these positions, but also specifically in school districts where we have children who, as you had mentioned, we have to start early to really interrupt racism early on.
Yes.
But there's no vision for what this work looks like, and there's no structure where this position is not in a position of, I would say, authority, meaning that they should be held to the reverence of an assistant superintendent. They should be right up under the superintendent, right up under the board. They should not be separate and hidden in some department where the work really cannot, reverberate across the fabric of this organization.
Right.
The other piece is they have to have a team. right? If they don't have a team, then it's very difficult for someone to come in and do the work. And I say team, meaning that's a resource. They need people to work with them. They need a budget. You know, they're not going to be able to operate on a shoestring budget, which is often what happens. And also, again, if it's not the fabric and vision of the board and those that are running that particular organization, what will happen is in about 2 years, when we know what happens is budgets get cut, and the first positions to go are typically those. And we're back to the same thing, is that it's not a priority. And Jeffrey talks a lot about boards having to prioritize their work. This work has to be a priority, and that means if it's a priority, you put your budget there. And so those are some things to keep in mind with that job, but specifically making sure that whoever is hired, that they get their own professional learning, support, coaching, so that they can sustain that job, because it is very hard and it takes a toll, especially on people who are already impacted by oppression, to then hold that position. And that intersectionality, that personal professional intersectionality, definitely plays out in how they are able to carry out that job.
And navigate through
that's kind of a big picture, So I'll pause for a moment because there's a lot more to unpacking that one, which is a great topic.
Interestingly, I'm glad that you're saying that that person should be up under the superintendent and the school board. Oftentimes, and I laugh when I talk to superintendents and they say, well, I said to them, when you have someone of that caliber in your school district, they have to push this thing by you first before they present to anybody else. They have to push it by you. If that kind of language comes out from someone who you pushed through you to get the okay from you before they present it to everybody else, that means something's going on in your head too, right? That you believe these kinds of words, that, you know, we don't need to have more teachers of color. So exactly why did you hire that person? Right?
Yeah.
So, you know, there's some school districts that are doing it with the best of intentions, and they're taking on the task of doing the very hard work. I too often find that these are checking of boxes, right? That, you know, that person, and I agree with you, Nicole, 2 years from now, well, we had to eliminate that position because we had budget cuts. You know, it's a very easy position to eliminate, right? And so I am wondering now if we have a school for people who really want to be equity officers, because it takes such an emotional toll on you. And if you're someone who wasn't ready to begin with and you just took it because it sounds great, you're someone of color, and it pays well, you know, so you can get out the classroom, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, and I've seen that happen. You know, the why of it. Why are people taking on that position? Even down to the job title, right, and the position, the job description. And I think, you know, I always think about, like, would we cut an assistant superintendent or assistant position? No, those are infrastructures of the school district, and that's how we have to see this position. But also the criteria to get that job. And I think that there is no technically a school for it, right? Like, people come with doctorate degrees and they come with different experiences, but having a real criteria for that position is something that districts are still wrestling with because they've never seen it. And so I think that it's important that as people create these positions, and that's kind of for the audience that's listening on that, because there are a lot of folks who will call me and say, hey, what do you think about this job? And I'll actually give them input on the job description, but I have to remind them that you have to be okay with what that other duties as assigned is.
There you go.
That has to really be planted in the vision of that district, which goes back to, again, the district leadership before they even create the job. They have professional learning to even know what equity work is about in education, and typically they don't, because it's just kind of, like you said, another box. The technical work, but they miss the adaptive part of the work, which is to actually change mindsets, change a system through a lens that includes multiple facets, not just change a policy, change a practice, mark those boxes that we changed our budget, so we forget about the nuances of the system, which is the people work, right?
Come on, yes.
Where it stops. You know, emotional intelligence of this work.
You know
what?
what?
A lot of time on, and those are positions of power, right? Positions of power come with privilege, and when you get uncomfortable, what do? Stop. We disengage, and so that's why that front loading of that work has to be done before people do knee-jerk responses, which is what you see right now. With George Floyd's murder, what you saw, and this is not just education, this is all industries. I get a lot of calls from different industries and sectors who are like, hey, we want to have a task force. We want to have a new position. We want to change the signs to Black Lives Matter and all these things that seem like checking the box of the work. The work's actually more emotional. It's it's more people work, and it's systems work, right? And that takes time, it takes strategy, and it takes preparation.
You know
and
what?
A lot of times the readiness is not there.
Nicole, I have to take a quick station break, but you're one of the people now that I'd love to meet, because I've been saying this for years. It's emotional work. It's emotional, intelligent work, and it takes time. There are people, superintendents will call and say, I want you to do 2 training sessions, and that'll be our equity work. Like Jesus wept. No. This is not what we're doing. So hold on one second. Let me take a quick station break, and then we'll come back, okay? Yep. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WordRadio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. If you are hearing the sound of my voice, I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Don't miss the Electric Magazine Show, hosted by Cody Anderson and Vicki Leach. Saturday mornings from 7 a.m. till 9 a.m. Exclusively on Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
But they've got the experience.
I'm still in shock 3 or 4 years later that we're in this position now. Our democracy is at a pivotal point.
From the top, we don't trust our government. We see the trouble we're in economically. We've got 170,000 Americans dead, and yet this president will do anything he can to make it seem like things are better than they are.
I did more for the black community than anybody with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln.
It's our responsibility. If we don't lead that effort to make things better, we can't ask other people to do it. There is no good reason not to vote.
Right, we need to have individuals that are in office like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
They are our best shot to take us forward.
And that's what makes me incredibly hopeful, but we really do have to work for this thing.
To the thousands who did not vote, we need you to show up for our future and for our country.
You cannot sit on the sidelines. You got to get in the game.
Paid for by Biden for president. It's easier than ever to get the right health coverage for families of all sizes.
This is Bonnie, Ronnie, Tani, Johnny.
Penny gets you covered. Millennials, gig workers, virtual birthday partiers.
Grandma, you're on mute.
Penny gets you all covered. Penny helps you compare plans, get financial assistance, and purchase health insurance that fits your life. Get covered at PENNIE.com.
The Word Radio newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting wordradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on Word Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the Word Radio newsletter.
At PICO, we know one thing is certain. Times have changed. From kitchen classrooms to couch conference calls, searching for a new job, or new ways to keep your family connected. These changes have become a part of our reality. That's why our teams are working 24/7 to meet the needs of our communities. So no matter how much things change, you can depend on PICO to be there with the energy and help you need to power through. Learn more at pico.com.
You're listening to The Source on Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Welcome back to The Source. I have on the air with me, Lord have mercy, it's been a day. My husband said if I drank, he would have a martini waiting when I got home, but I don't drink, so it'll be a bottle of essential water. Deborah Keys and Nicole Anderson, who was talking about equity in the boards. But ladies, something just came across that I wanted to share with you. Did you all know about the Crown Act to ban hairstyle discrimination? Either one of you?
Yeah. Yes, say it again.
Okay, the Crown Act that is essentially to ban hairstyle discrimination for black and brown people?
Yes.
Okay, so in Washington today, they announced the House passed the Crown Act on Monday evening. The bill H.R. 5309 would explicitly prohibit discrimination on the basis of hairstyle or hair texture that is commonly associated with a particular race or national origin. It would prohibit such discrimination in federally funded programs, housing, employment, public accommodations, and with respect to making and enforcing contracts. And so our Congressman Dwight Evans here said, I am an original co-sponsor of the Crown Act at the federal level because we need to stamp out hairstyle discrimination, which is often a backdoor way to allow racial or national origin discrimination. Here's the thing. I read this to you both because it's happening with children in schools right now across this country. You know, we don't like your hair. In fact, not just children, with adults. Not 5 or 6 years ago, a gentleman who wanted to become principal in a particular school district but had dreadlocks was told by the then superintendent, if you want to go any further up the food chain, you got to get rid of your locks. Right? So this Crown Act is absolutely important. Now, they'll find other ways to discriminate if they really don't want you there with your locks or with your natural hair. You know, and so, you know, what are your thoughts on that? Because, Lord, yes, you're talking about the equity work. Even our hair is a problem in these schools.
Yeah.
Deborah, you want to go first?
Yeah, and Nicole, I thought that they had something like that in California. No?
I was going to say.
Yeah, they did.
California, the rest of the nation, right?
Yes.
Exactly. And, you know, that's just one more thing that our kids, if we're just talking about students now, have to endure with discrimination.
Yep.
Now you're attacking how I look. What does my hair have to do with my mind?
Yep.
And you know, and that's just not acceptable. And we have to have people who are not afraid to be to stand up for these children, because if it's a school board being afraid that they're not going to win their election, you know, shame on them, because you are there to do what's in the best interest of children, no matter what. So that is just not acceptable. And so I think the board has control of that. Would not be a policy in my district. You know?
Yeah.
So what do you say, Nicole?
I mean, you know, it's a loaded one, and I use often I do the history of public education lesson with educators, because I think what we forget is that we've had a history of legislation that appears to be an advancement to protect, you know, from discrimination, from oppression. And there have been some great advancements, you know, that have supported this. The hair piece is no different from many others, in my opinion. I am in California, so my context looks different. While we, you know, kind of pride ourselves on being diverse and progressive, we still have what I call the institution, right? With more of danger versus the overt, you know, discrimination about hair. We have lots of folks who have lots of different diverse looks here, so I don't see that as much in terms of the overtness. But what I do see is that there are inherent policies and practices that are impacted by implicit bias. And so what happens is, without calling out the institutional space, which are those blind spots around how people are impacted by what we don't necessarily call out all the time. And so having to have a law tells you that we have a long ways to go.
Exactly.
Some law. But I will say this, you know, let's call out things like Brown versus Board of Education, right? Let's call out other acts that have been advancements. But at the end of the day, they haven't landed well when it comes to practice, because, again, we can have a law. But
come on, Nicole. Yeah, we're going to have to meet. You and I definitely have to meet now. Yes.
Yeah, I tell you, and it's sad, because what happens is schools are more segregated than ever, right?
Yes.
We had 2 Brown versus Board of Education. So when you go to, like, the hair piece and you talk about dress codes, you talk about lots of different policies where kids are impacted, what we have to remember as leaders, and this is governance teams, this is superintendents, this is principals, this school sites, is that when we have a law, we want to leverage the law, first of all, right? It's there, great. When we have a policy that we put in place, great. But if we haven't spent time looking at people's mental models through ongoing professional learning to unpack bias, to unpack the blind spots, to make people aware of what is actually happening, then I have to say that we can't be upset when educators do things like call the police on, you know, a kid in a virtual Zoom space in class because they see a Nerf gun in the background, right? Or because
they see what in the background, Nicole?
A Nerf gun. Now, that was little Isaiah in Colorado. Had the sheriff called because he had the Nerf gun shown in the back of his virtual space. And his teacher called. He got suspended for 5 days, and the sheriff came. That's a whole other piece, right? But what I say, the reason I bring this up is that this is an issue, is that if we're not seeing that we haven't given our educators the opportunity to learn about all of these barriers to our children's education, then how can we hold them accountable? So I can't say to, I'm a principal. I go into a school and I say, hey, we're going to change the dress code. Or how about this? we're going to change our student nutrition policies, and we're not going to force our kids of color who may be lactose intolerant to say you have to select milk when you walk through the lunch line.
Yes.
Right? Like, we don't talk about that. We just say, this is the menu, and you're going to drink it. This is the dress code. You're going to follow it. This is the behavior policy or matrix. You're going to follow it, or else you're punished. But if we don't give our educators the opportunity to learn and understand how these have perpetuated since the inception of schools, that kids of color have never been expected to be given an equal, let alone an equitable opportunity to be successful. But if they don't know that, you know, we talk about fish swimming in water, right? Fish are like, what's water? Right? We don't know that the public education system has all these barriers that are historic, and our educators have never been given that lesson. So we don't take the time to do ongoing professional learning. We don't set, like, as a governance team, say, look, we have in our framework our priority that our staff will have ongoing learning, and then we're going to hold them accountable by our standards and expectations. Then we get what we get. And we can't even, as educators and leaders, be upset because we're not giving those opportunities for awareness.
And here's the other thing. Oftentimes when they do set up the parameters for this kind of work, they give them options whether they should show up or not, whether they can show up or not. Right? And if they're told that they have to, if it's a mandatory meeting, then they file grievances with the unions. I mean, these teachers are really creative in the way they work through not wanting to do the work. You know?
Right. But, you know, but I'm going to defend, can I defend teachers for 1 second?
Yes, go ahead.
30 seconds to defend him. Is when you do systems work, right, leadership change, and you ask people to change. Teachers don't have all the ultimate power in a system, right? It's based on position alone. And with relationships being fragmented, what often happens when people have less power, then they're going to flex the power they have. Right? We see people flexing it in protest right now, right? That's the only way oppressed people have a voice. Is I'm going to tear up some stuff, and I'm going to yell as loud as I can. I'm going to go in the street. Well, what teachers have in their toolkit is they have a union contract, which originally I was a teacher, right? So I like the fact I had some protection, but people use it to allow them to be comfortable, right? So when I get uncomfortable, I'm going to pull that out. You're not going to force me to go to training and tell me I got to listen to you tell me that I'm a racist. And so we got to talk about the relationships that have not existed well and how leaders have to cultivate more positive, trusting relationships with our teacher unions. Because the reality is that that's missing, so it gets in the way of us being able to address what's needed. And we don't take that time as leaders to do that. We'll fight with unions instead of really pausing going, look, we got to learn each other's stories. We got to meet each other where we're at because kids need it. We don't do that. And I'm just calling us as leaders out. We got more power. So we got to recognize, and sometimes that's a pride issue, our egos. Let's put it aside. Let's sit with our union presidents. Let's open that door and let's talk, you know?
Yes.
It's a different story. That's a whole nother session, right?
It is. I'm so glad you said that, Nicole. And Andrea, just like, you know, we were talking earlier, it is the hardest part is focusing on the mental model.
Yes.
How can you convince people if they believe something? How can you convince them that this is causing problems for children?
Right.
Mental model. This is where Nicole and I spend a lot of our time. You have, like you said, you have to meet people where they are because you can have the best message, but if you don't meet them where they are, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
And so you have to be very intentional, deliberate, and you have to be patient. And it is hard work, H-A-R-D, but it's also hard work, H-A-R-T. You know, and so not everybody can do this work.
Yep.
You know, and so that's why it's so important to make sure you have the right people in the right place, because if not, we're going to continue to have this vicious cycle that we are in right now.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So we clearly still have a lot of work to do.
Yeah,
and I don't know, you know, over time, and I guess we're just going to have to do it one day at a time, one breath at a time, one person at a time, one story at a time, until we can get the system to a place. Unfortunately, history has shown that we have to have tragedy in order for us to get to the places where we are now, right? So 5 years ago, we couldn't even talk about having an equity officer, much less have training. 5 years later, we're having equity officers, but we're just throwing them in the spots and saying, go ahead, swim, you know, and there is no training for them or figuring out how we work through our biases to get them to the place to build relationships so they're not looked on as the enemy when they come walking through the buildings, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so, you know, we have to work through those processes so we can get to the next place where this kind of position is integrated in every school district, and that and it's built out the same way they build out a curriculum, you know, for math, science, whatever else, that this is built into what they're doing, and those relationships have to take time and will be you know, developed. What else do we need to know? I mean,
It's so
we
much.
got you all fired up.
Yes, yes, because I see and hear it all the time. You know, a young man, 14, had an ankle bracelet put on him after being suspended for 3 days over the spring. This is why, you know, when that lady called earlier today and folks were like, did this really happen? Oh, these things really happen, right?
Oh, yeah.
He was touching a girl's hair because he really liked her, and he was suspended for 3 days, and then in the fall, his mother gets a call that the police department are coming to put an ankle brace on him. How in the world does something like that happen when you hear nothing from them that this child was arrested, right? It's the way the systems are set up. And so I want us to be very mindful and not to think of these stories as fantastic because it didn't happen to us. They're happening to way too many people. Way too many people.
Yeah, way too many.
You know,
and we have to just go back to the basics of understanding that, number one, this education system was never designed for us to be successful. So how can you address the issues that we have with a system that causes it? And so we have to do things, reimagine. We have to do things different. And I always say, if we haven't learned anything from when schools closed in March up until now in the education system, shame on us. Because if we thought there were inequities then, the veil has been revealed. Now you know. It is very clear that we have not been servicing subgroups of children.
Yep. And they've been dancing around it and playing and manipulating the data for years. And I mean, and as a former school board member, I've watched this happen. We dance around it and manipulate the data and say, and then when they didn't have to report the data anymore and could remove the subgroup, so we don't have to report that anymore. You know, so you could tell where their hearts were, because if you don't have to report it and it's important to you, then that will become the thing that you continue to report anyway, to look at those subgroups, right?
Yeah, and it's a hard one. You know, I think about, you know, as a former, you know, teacher, principal, I'm going back to that space, is a lot of times we have been taught to play those games, right? We've been taught to play, I call it at the time we had an API score, right? And that was your kind of score for your, you know, you had to be a 700, 800 school to get the award for distinguished schools, all that. And what I think about is we were taught to play that game, right? Because that's what the narrative was. So when I think about how the more knowledge our leaders have around, one, just the ability to do school differently, right? Like you have to do it differently, and you have the ability to, but you also have to have the mental permission to.
Right.
Because if I've been taught, like as an assistant principal, when we had all those discipline policies that were in place, and we had the power struggles with teachers and our African-American girls who wanted to wear a little scarf in their class because they didn't have their hair done, all that stuff, right? When I think back to the referrals, the suspensions, the expulsions, the probation officers I dealt with, I realized that when I was in my early phases of assistant principal work that I didn't know any better. I just knew this is how we did school. And so until I started to get professional learning, even though my core belief, I was always a social justice advocate. I was always someone who believed in equity work. I just didn't have the tools, and I didn't have the awareness on how to be strategic. So what did I do? I still built relationships with kids to this day, right? That was one of my biggest strengths. I still empower kids, but I still enforce policies that reinforce racist practices. So I was a perpetuator of oppression, and I was a Black woman. So when I came to the realization that when I became a principal that, you know what, I don't have to do this. I'm the person that actually can change this, but I had to have a strategy to help my staff know we don't have to do school this way. And there's no education police that's going to come and say, hey, you need to suspend that kid for putting that do-rag on their head and they was having a power struggle with you, or that kid didn't fall in line. That is us that perpetuates that, but it's because of our own blind spots. So when we kind of sit back and go, okay, wait, where do we start this work? It's not with change of policy and a practice. It's not starting there. It's starting with people. I'm calling out people of color who are educators first.
Yes.
Because we know this, but we don't start with us first. How do we perpetuate these inequities in the system? How do we recognize the history of public education and even know why we even got to this place So then we can interrupt and then start teaching others through meeting them where they're at, by the way. And these are our white colleagues. These are our Western European colleagues. These are folks who don't necessarily even know their own cultural identity. We got to start there with our own stories and our own relationships and our own mental models, as Deborah mentioned, before we start talking about let's change this practice and policy. But we don't start there. We start in kind of this backwards mode, and it's really a parallel. It's like you have to do all these things simultaneously, but we got to start with ourselves first. And that whole analogy, we get on, me and Deborah used to fly on airplanes a whole lot, and that flight attendant would always say what?
Put your mask on first.
Yes. Before you put on somebody else. And we don't have that approach to this work, which is why we keep perpetuating and saying, look, the system is broke, right? Let's change the system. Let's change those people. And we don't say, like, I want to be the part of the change. And we definitely don't. And then here's the hardest part, where you standing by yourself is, I got to lead the change. And Deborah has a great image that she shares in PowerPoint, and I've kind of stolen and been using that, Deborah, boy, is that question, who wants to, and everybody's raising their hand, and who wants to lead change? Nobody wants to raise their hand when it's time to lose your job over this work.
Come on.
When it's time to lose your life over this work. That's a different conversation.
All right, hold on. Listen, I got to take a commercial break. Well, you all got to come back. Hold on, because you hit all sorts of things over here. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WordRadio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. If you are hearing the sound of my voice, I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Hey, Word family. Our friends at Amoroso's Baking Company are hiring right now. Amoroso's has been baking the delicious bread in our community for over 100 years, and they want you to join their team today. The old and the young love Amoroso's, and they are hiring right now. Check it out. They offer fair pay and provide health, dental, and prescription plans after 90 days employment. Call 856-754-0355 or visit amorososbaking.com for details.
Keystone First VIP Choice HMO SNP Dual Eligible Special Needs Plan has a 4 out of 5 star rating and is one of the highest rated Medicare plans in the region. Keystone First VIP Choice and you are better together. If you live in Philadelphia, Bucks, Chester, Montgomery, or Delaware County, and you have both Medicare and Medicaid, choose the Medicare plan that is working to help you get better care. Enjoy extra benefits at no cost to you with Keystone First VIP Choice. You get benefits like dental, vision, and transportation to and from your medical appointments. They also cover a fitness membership to a gym of your choice. $150 toward over-the-counter pharmacy items. There's no copay for doctor's visits. They offer a large provider network, a great prescription plan, dental coverage, and even eyeglasses. Plus, you don't have to wait for open enrollment. You can change your coverage every quarter. Keystone First VIP Choice. The name you trust, the service you deserve. Call Keystone First VIP Choice today at 1-877-686-1760 or visit KeystoneFirstVIPChoice.com. This is not a fad for us. We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are undeniably, indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media. WURD.
You're listening to The Source on Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Welcome back to The Source. So, Nicole, if we had started this conversation 20 minutes ago, we'd be in a good place. But you you hit something that I have to talk about, and I'm going to give you, I literally have now 5 minutes exactly because I have another show starting that I have to get out of the studios. You spoke about the fact that as Black people in our spaces in education, we have to start holding ourselves accountable and leading the way, even if it means that we lose positions and lose our jobs. You ain't said nothing but a word, the whole word, nothing but the word, so help you God. I cannot tell you how many times we have had conversations with Black educators who say, I'm just trying to get a leg up. I'm going to do what they tell me to do. And oftentimes we're the ones that discipline worse than anybody else, right? Because we're trying to assimilate and fit into the, so we don't want to be seen as separated and being kind to those children.
Yeah.
We got 4 minutes. Y'all go ahead. Go ahead. Just go ahead. Go
ahead, Deborah.
I just don't.
Girl, you're right. You're right. And we have to look at ourselves because we are sometimes doing it worse for these kids, making it worse for these kids because it's just about, well, I made it. And I'm just going along to get along. And that's the worst attitude to have because you're doing more damage to these children. And so sometimes people who are in that space should be coached out of that space.
Okay, now, I've coached a few people out of those spaces, right?
Oh, I have too. Out of yes. Yes, I will leave that right there and let them
we will. We'll leave that there.
We'll leave that
there. Oh. And it's a hard one. I think for this one, when I say, you have to be willing to lose your job, because we don't do this work because it's a paycheck, right? I think we have to see it in that way. It's our journey as equity leaders, and that's when we have to come to a crossroad. Am I just having a job or am I an equity leader? And that's not a job, right? That's the role you play in society. And so when I say don't be afraid to lose your job, I'm not telling people to go do stupid stuff. I'm not telling people not to be strategic. I'm not telling people to work with allies. What I'm saying is, when you've outgrown that flower pot, then you've outgrown it, and you have to be ready for what the next space is for in your career.
Right.
And I say that from my spiritual journey. For those that have a belief system, whatever it might be, for me, I know that is the journey, right? Is that when it's time, and that means you've done what you could do in that season.
Yes.
But ultimately, we don't want to burn bridges. We don't want to do things like, getting our feelings, our emotions, burn bridges, and then we can't go back and continue to expand our work. So we have to be willing to lose our job, meaning we work our way out of a job. We go into a new space, expand, touch more people, more lives, but also cannot be in fear, operate in fear for this work. But we got to be strategic and having a systems lens to do this work, knowing we go slow to go fast, and that's the patience. Because as people of color, we tired, right? We just want to see it happen yesterday.
Yes.
And unfortunately, you can't do 400 plus years of institutional racism in a year.
Listen, Nicole and Deborah, thank you both. These conversations are just wonderful. Thank you both so much. I cannot overemphasize how enriching this conversation was, that I was learning, unlearning, relearning with you all, and that when COVID is over, one of us is jumping on a plane, because Mother, we all three of us got to get together. All right?
We'll
you all have a wonderful afternoon. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having
You're so welcome. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
All right. Wow, this has been some show. Tyrone, I'm going to give you the last 2 minutes, man, and I do mean 2 minutes because Mother's got to get off the air. I think you better call Tyrone.
Well, Mother,
I
don't need 2 minutes because what I can say in 30 seconds.
What, sir?
You have knocked it out the ballpark again.
Thank you.
Both yesterday and today.
Thank you.
I am just so glad that folks are hearing our young people speak.
Yes.
Because what I see and what I'm hearing is that they ain't going to lie down and take it anymore.
Now, I'm trying to tell you, it's a new day. It's a whole new day. And I keep trying to tell people the nicest way I know how to, because I'm constantly in the spaces with young people. They are willing to die for this. They are no longer going to sit around and wait for teachers, educators, principals, school district superintendents. They are not playing. And so I'm quietly trying to, bring people on every week, trying to get people to get themselves together, get your mind right, because these are not the young children of yesterday's generation. They're not from my generation. They're not from the baby boomers generation. They're so sick and tired. They've been going through so much in the schools that we keep washing it away and saying things to them like, well, in my day, da-da-da-da-da. I see the atrocities that are happening in schools, Tyrone. I see them every single day. And so when I sit here in this chair, I can speak intelligently with emotional intelligence around what I know to be fact. I have stacks and stacks of data around this issue. And so, we've got a lot going on. I got to get off the air, man, but thank you.
And Mother,
yes.
Just want to say they are just so brilliant. Because if there is all this question about them not being educated in this educational system, so where is all this creativity and all this brilliance coming from?
Because our children are resilient.
We are gifted.
Yes, we are. We're gifted and resilient. Yep. And they're learning, they're using social media and they're using the platforms online to learn things that we are still trying to figure out. Like they're researching and asking questions and putting good documentation together. These children are not here to play. You hear what I'm telling you? These 16 to 30 years old, you better stop. I'm telling you now, they are absolutely ready for anything we have coming. And the other thing that I'm going to say, and I'm going to end the show with this, Tyrone, is they're getting ready to start taking over city government. They're pulling their things together to start running for office because they have the large enough numbers to push people out. And if people would start to realize that instead of saying dismissing them, they're taking notes, trust me, and they're coming. They're absolutely coming.
They're coming. Much love and much respect.
Thank you, my brothers. Always good to talk to you. Bye-bye.
All right.
Heavens to Betsy. What a show, what a show. Lord, Lord, Lord. There was something that I saw via email that I wanted to, text message that I wanted to talk about because folks send this kind of stuff all the time. And I saw this. Mike Bloomberg paid the fines for 32,000 felons in Florida so they can vote. Anything that's being done to suppress the vote, folks are really helping, like Mike Bloomberg, to make sure that that can happen. In Pennsylvania, if you have a felony, you can still vote. So that's a gift. So if you have a felony, please get out and register to vote here in Pennsylvania. And then the other thing is there was a news report, and I can't find it now because there's something so much going on here, and I got to get off the air, that people are very concerned and upset. They're starting to get upset with all the protests happening around the country. Even though they are aware that the protests are happening for a specific reason, they want life to go back to normal, and they want folks to go home and just stop protesting now. So it shows, it stands to reason that even with all the things that are happening in the country, we still don't get it, right? And we have to constantly have the conversation. To my black and brown people, here's what I'm going to say to you. It is hard not to get emotional and to get into a space of craziness because so much is going on around us. I am going to suggest that we find people to talk to, find ways to center ourselves, because as hard as it has been for us over the years and the decades, we're in some really crucial times right now. And so to get overly emotional, people have learned how to dismiss us because they know that we get passionate about our stories and they want to behave as if we're just too, we're just erratic and don't know what we're talking about. But it's that passion that has driven us for as long as it has to take us to where we are. Power seeds nothing without a struggle. And so we have to continue to move and to learn, use the information that we have going on out here. I want you all to watch a documentary on Netflix about the social media platforms that we're all on and how artificial intelligence have begun taking over the way we think and react to certain things. And so we have to learn how to unplug, center ourselves, and before we replug, and when we plug back in, don't just watch and look at any old thing. Don't just take any old thing that you see as the gospel, because there's a lot of disinformation out here, and so I want you all to pay attention to that. Coming up next is Sincerely Sarita for Happy Hour. I am Andrea Lawful Sanders. Thank you for another excellent edition of The Source. I'll see you when I see you. Goodbye.